Pardon? Oh, it's recording, right? Okay, right. Well, sorry. Welcome to this meeting of the Governance and Audit Committee being held on the 24th of September 2025. This meeting is being, well, it says webcast, but actually being recorded with the exception of any business that the committee resolves to exclude the press and public because of the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined by the Local Government Act 1972. This meeting is being held as a hybrid meeting with Governance and Audit Committee members attending in person at the Council Chamber at County Hall, Ruthin, or remotely via video conference. For transparency purposes, I will ask the monitoring officer to identify which Governance and Audit Committee members are in attendance and whether they are attending in person or remotely. Those attending remotely are kindly asked to mute their microphones unless they are called upon to speak. Governance and Audit Committee members are also asked to have their videos switched on throughout the meeting unless I specifically request you to turn your video off to improve the quality of the audio link when you are speaking. You will be expected to restart your video once you have finished speaking. Please also refrain from using the chat facility as messages sent to all are visible on the webcast or the recording. Those present in the chamber are asked to make sure that they speak directly into the microphone to improve the quality of the sound for those attending remotely. To aid transparency, all the meeting's business must be conducted through myself as chair. I'm going to hand over to the monitoring officer now for the declaration of interest.
Thank you, Chair. If I just confirm who's present first.
Yeah.
Members of the committee who are present in the chamber are the Chair, Mr David Stewart, lay member, Vice Chair, Councillor Mark Young and Councillor Carol Holliday. Members of the committee who are attending remotely, Councillors Bobby Feely and Ellie Chad, and lay member Mr Nigel Rudd. Also present in the chamber is Councillor Delith Jones, and online is Councillor Julie Matthews. There are various officers who are supporting the meeting, both in the chamber and online. Apologies.
Yes, okay. Item 1 on the agenda. Any apologies? The only apology I've got is from Councillor James Elson. So I think that's everybody accounted for. So item 2, declaration of interest. Thank you, Manager.
Diolch, Mr Cadeirydd. Na i neud hwnna yn y Gymraeg. Bydd aelodau'n ymwybodol o'r gyfyniad o dan god ymddygiad y cyngor i ddatgan unrhyw gysylltiad personol neu sy'n rhagfarnu mewn perthynas ag unrhyw busnes i'w ystyried yn y cyfarfod heddiw. Dylai cysylltiadau o'r fath gael eu dacelu nawr, neu cyn gyntad y bydd y cynghorydd neu'r aelod yr effeithir arnynt yn ymwybodol fod ganddynt gysylltiad personol neu sy'n rhagfarnu yn y materion heddiw. Mae'n ofynnol i holl aelodau sy'n datgan cysylltiad i nodi'n glir beth yw'r cysylltiad ac i hysbysu pa un a yw'n gysylltiad personol neu'n gysylltiad personol sy'n rhagfarnu fel y diffinwyd yn y cod ymddygiad. Mae'n ofynnol i unrhyw aelod sy'n datgan cysylltiad sy'n rhagfarnu adael y cyfarfod yn ystod y drafodaeth ac ni ellir cymryd rhan mewn unrhyw drafodion. Gall aelodau ddiddordeb personol yn unig gymryd rhan yn y drafodaeth ac unrhyw bleidlais. Os bydd gysylltiad personol sy'n rhagfarnu yn cael ei ddagelu heddiw nad yw wedi ddagelu a'i gofnodi yn flaenorol, bydd yn ofynnol i'r cynghorydd neu'r aelod dan sylw lenwi a llofnodi ffurflen datgan cysylltiad sydd yna ar gael gan staff cefnogi'r Pwyllgor sy'n bresennol heddiw neu ar-lein.
Are there any declarations of interest for myself, as usual? But one non-prejudicial interest. I'm in receipt of a pension from Clywyd Pensions, which relates to the statement of accounts, which could be mentioned in the minutes and in the work programme today. Any other declarations of interest from members? Councillor Ellie Chard. Good morning, Ellie. Bore da.
Bore da. I'm also a member of the Clywyd Pension Fund. I'm in receipt. Plus, agenda item number 11. I think this is personal. I'm a member of the JCC committee. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Diolch.
Yeah, just to confirm, being a member of the JCC is not an interest technically, but it's good that you, for transparency purposes, you've said you're a member.
Any other declarations of interest? Nigel Rudd. Morning, Nigel.
Morning, bore da. Declaration in respect to being a member of the GAC for Conway. And could I seek the monitoring officer's comment in respect of all members being in receipt of allowances, which comes up under item 6, internal audit report, for clarification, please, Gary. Thank you, Chair.
No, I think that's an exemption on the if it's an allowance that's being paid to all members, then it is an exemption from having a prejudicial interest in respect to that.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no other declarations of interest, we'll go on to item 3. Any urgent matters? None have been brought to my attention. So we'll go on to item 4, which is to receive the minutes of the Governance and Audit Committee meeting, which was held on the 23rd of July 2025. As we normally do, we'll go through them page by page, fairly swiftly for accuracy, and then again for any matters arising from the minutes. So first of all, for accuracy, if you've got something you want to raise, please raise your hand. So, but for accuracy, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10. Just something briefly, a small point I want to raise on top of page 10. It's just one wrong word, but it just changed the meaning a little bit. The first paragraph on the top of page 10, it says discussions took place on some of the projects that had gone to plan and any common root causes that may need addressing. It was agreed that following the report on the internal audit exercise, and it says and project management, it was the internal audit exercise on project management, a dedicated member workshop would be beneficial to identify any possible improvement that might be necessary. This was following the session that we as members, GAC members, had with external and internal auditors earlier in the summer. So it just needs to say internal audit exercise on project management. So once that is complete, we are going to have this workshop. That's page 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. There's bits on page 18 I just want to raise. Bear with me. Apologies. To navigate when you want it to navigate. Again, near the top of the page, it was to do with the item being considered was the Governance and Audit Committee annual report for 24-25, and the top main paragraph there, it says the chair endorsed the comments and it was, regarding the role of the vice chair and agreed to add a section on the importance of the role of the vice chair in the report, which I did. It says also he agreed to include further detail as suggested on capital strategy and treasury management. This was a suggestion from fellow lay member Nigel Rudd. Looking back at the webcast of that, that's not quite what I agreed. I think we agreed to consider that for future years, but we did say because it didn't really pertain to the 24-25 financial year, that didn't apply then, but we would take into account for the reports for future years. So that's page 18, page 19, page 20. So we're satisfied with the accuracy of the minutes, subject to those 2 minor alterations from myself. So if we go through now for...
Sorry to check, can someone just move and someone propose and second that you accept the minutes?
I haven't done the matters arising yet.
You said that everybody accepted the accurate... It's okay.
Yeah,
Ignore
let's
me.
go through
Fine.
matters arising, sorry. Sorry, Gav, yeah. Okay, and so we'll just go through for page by page for any matters arising. So page 7, page 8. So on page 8, we mentioned last time the recruitment of the 2 vacant posts on the Governance and Audit Committee. For information, the interviews for the lay members are being held tomorrow and
yes,
over this week.
the majority of the interviews are being held tomorrow. There's a need to have a second date for interviews due to availability of some candidates, and that will be organised in the next week or so.
And so, and the other point I was going to ask if there's any update on getting the filling the elected member vacancy. It was vacated by Councillor Arwell.
Yes, Democratic Services have been in touch with the relevant group, and the group leader has confirmed that they are actively looking to secure a replacement from within that group, but we don't yet have a name.
Yeah, I can confirm that they're actively looking at that at this moment. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Do I see a hand up there? No. Okay. Right. Also on page 8, later further down, is to do with the performance assessment. It says an update report was tabled for Cabinet and Performance Scrutiny in November. This is the last but one paragraph. An update report was tabled for the Cabinet and Performance Scrutiny in November. Officers stated they would circulate a link to the update report for our members in information. I thought we actually said that we'd get a information report. This was on the performance panel assessment update. I think it was agreed. I can't swear, but that we'd get a information report.
I did pick
at
this
the
up.
November meeting.
I did this pick up
Yeah.
with officers. Their understanding was that it's going to Cabinet and Performance Scrutiny, and what they would do is they would send a link to that. Or I suppose they could append that report to your agenda as an information report, right? Because it'll be the same report, effectively.
It would, but from the point of view of transparency and seeing things through, wouldn't it be better if it was an information report, since the original performance panel update had to come to us ourselves anyhow?
Okay, well, they can, but can they just append or do you want them to top and tail the report? Because it'll be the same report.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, as an information item. Then,
As an
yeah?
information. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so that was page 8. Page 9. Page 10. 11. 12. 13. 14. On page 14, it mentioned the statement of accounts. I'm going to put Liz Thomas on the spot now. Good morning, Liz. Is there any reason to doubt that at this moment that the statement of accounts won't be coming in March?
I think what I said at bore da, good morning. Forgetting my manners. I think what I said at the last committee was we'd be able to confirm that position in November. I think I'd like to hold that line if I may, and we'll confirm in November. Thank
It was just to give it an opportunity to give any.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you.
I know. Work is progressing, but I would prefer to wait until November to give a more fuller answer, if that's okay. Thank you, Chair.
That's fine. Thank you. Page 15. Page 16. 17. 18. And 19. Okay, no other matters arising. Okay, no hands up on it. No. Okay, thank you. So I think the recommendation is to receive the minutes of the Governance Audit Committee meeting held on the 23rd of July, subject to any changes agreed. And so if we can accept that, can I have a proposer for that, please? Councillor Mark Young, seconder. Ellie Chard, all in favour? Okay, thank you. Right, item 5, which is the Public Service Ombudsman of Wales annual letter and the complaints report for 2024-25. This is on pages 21 to 48 of the pack. If we can welcome Councillor Julie Matthews to this meeting. I know she's online there. Good morning. And Lloyd, Head of Adult Social Care and Homelessness, and Kevin Roberts as well. So, and Tony Ward as well. So. I think the purpose of the report is to receive a summary of the Public Service Ombudsman for Wales annual letter 24-25 and an overview of complaints received by Denbighshire under the Council's customer feedback policy. So, is Councillor Matthews just going to introduce the report?
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, Bovidar, good morning, Chair. Thank you very much. Yes, I will be brief, as I appreciate there will be plenty of questions regarding this report. I'm sure we are all aware of the challenges the council faced last year, so this is reflected in this. So a little bit of outline. The role of the Public Services Ombudsman for Wales is to consider complaints about public services, to investigate alleged breaches of the Council Code of Conduct, to set standards for complaints handling by public bodies, and to drive improvement in complaints handling and learning from complaints. So this annual report provides an overview of the effectiveness of our complaints process, and also provides the committee with details of the Public Services Ombudsman for Wales annual letter relating to complaints received about the council, members and town councils. It also benchmarks Denbighshire's performance against all local authorities in Wales. I'll now hand over to Anne Lloyd, Head of Service. I believe Kevin's there, who will provide further insight and details and answer any questions. I also understand Tony Ward is there, is in attendance to answer any specific questions in relation to particular performance within the council. So, diolch, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks. So just in relation to the report, it obviously covers our internal Your Voice complaints and, as Julie said, the Ombudsman for Wales. So the number of complaints last year increased, and although performance dropped, considering the increase in the number of complaints that we were handling, performance was relatively good. Most of the increase obviously was related to the rollout of the waste service, which everybody is aware of. We've also seen an increase in the number of complaints going to the Ombudsman, but for the 98 complaints that were sent through, only 6 were investigated. The rest were either premature, so people had gone to the Ombudsman before they'd gone through the complaints process, or the Ombudsman decided not to investigate the complaint. We received 10 recommendations relating to 6 actual complaints. And there was 8 of the recommendations were due in the year 24-25. 4 were late, 3 of which were related to one complaint, and that was about the way a complaint had actually been handled. There was no overall recommendations to the council, so sometimes when the Ombudsman gives us an actual recommendation, there was none, but we've acknowledged that obviously we need to look at handling large volumes of complaints again. And I think some of the lessons learned from that is that when we're developing new projects or we're taking forward large-scale change, we need to make sure that complaints handling is built into the project plan and there is some dedicated resource. I think we never estimated the number of complaints that were going to come into the waste service, and it was difficult to handle the number that were coming in at a time when the service was under severe pressure. But I think we need to just realise in the future we need to build that resource in as a lesson learned coming out of this. So I think that's sort of it in summary, but I'm sure we can go into questions if that's okay.
Thank you, Anne, for that. I should say thank you everybody for the report. Before I go any further, Gary, do you want to say about the...
It was just on the annual letter. If I just let members know that we received, when the annual letter arrives, the Ombudsman asks that we report it to the Governance and Audit Committee and to Cabinet. It's been published with the pack for this committee. We subsequently got a message from the Ombudsman's office to say that they think there's some fault somewhere in their system on some of their statistics. They don't know who it affects. They're working to check it all, and that they will contact us, all councils, by the end of September to confirm either that your letter is unaffected or these are the changes that need to be made to it. So they had requested that if it's already in the system to be reported, it's already in the system to be reported. But if it's not yet in the system to be reported, can you hang on to it till we give you this confirmation? I did discuss it with the chair, and the chair thought that as this report was not just about the annual letter, but about the annual complaints report itself, that we should continue. The report to Cabinet won't go until such time as we've received either confirmation that the letter is unaffected or there are any amendments to it. It's down to go to Cabinet in October, and if they're true to their avowed intent to get this sorted out by the end of September, that should be unaffected. If it takes longer than that, then we'll slip it to November. But just to give you the full background, we're not anticipating any major changes. They think there are some changes that they might have to make.
So if in unlikely circumstances there were any significant changes, and members might want questions about the public service, the Ombudsman's report today, so it's a bit of a mouthful, that's an Ombudsman's report today, they have to take account that in theory, some of the figures could be incorrect, but if we've learned that they are incorrect, we can bring that just the letter as to the committee again as a separate item.
What I would suggest, Chair, is that there are 3 possibilities. The first is it's unaffected. The second is that there might be some minor issues. I don't think they're anticipating anything major, but the third option could be that there would be something major. Yeah. I think if it's either unaffected or very minor, then we would take it to cabinet. I don't think it would need to come back here, but
No.
but we would send you all a link to the letter. Clearly, if there was a major change or it was affected in some other way, then we'd bring it back.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, I should say thank you for the report. Just to remind members, the Government and Audit Committee's terms of reference in respect of complaints are to review and assess the authority's ability to handle complaints effectively, and that wording is lifted from the statutory requirement. Previously, in view of that, the committee has suggested that to enable it to meet its terms of reference, we need assurance that all complaints are put into the system, that they're handled effectively, that any trends or services which especially stand out have been identified, that lessons are learned and improvements made as a result, and also interested in the benchmarking of performance with other local authorities. I think this report generally gives us these assurances. I'm going to open now to members. Any questions or observations they may have on the complaints report and the Ombudsman's annual letter? No. Ellie Chard first. Thank you, Ellie.
Yeah. It's appendix number 1, and it's the service complaint table. Can you hear? Oh, I can hear Jeanette's television. I'll carry on. In quarter 2, it says that the percentage of complaints that have been completed was 89%, but I spotted in quarter 3 was only 51%. So I'm just wondering, was it due to the fact that staff was dealing with the waste, the big waste problem, and that's why the highways complaints in that quarter when being dealt with? Okay.
Thank you. Tony,
thank you, Chair. Bore da pawb. Thank you, Ellie. Simple answer is yes. Obviously, when we get complaints in, they're not being dealt with by Kevin, the complaints officer. They are being dealt with by the relevant service. And as we know, at that point last year, the service was under a lot of pressure trying to deal with the operational issues post the implementation of the new waste service. So it's the same officers essentially who are dealing with complaints. So that's essentially the reason why the performance has dropped, because the service was under so much strain at that time.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. I was thinking it probably was, but it was quite a big dip from 89 to 51%. But thank you for your answer.
Thank you. Councillor Mark Young.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you. So the first question, lessons learned, you've answered, so thanks for that, and that was good to hear. So we can see the complaints have risen. It's quite clear. A lot of it is linked to the waste service. And part of the lessons learned, I think we just need to ask what assurances can be given that the performance and the complaints handling are improving. That's the first one. If I'm right, and I know there might be some questions over the data, I think we've got one of the highest in Wales now, complaints per 1,000 residents. With this is risks of reputation, operational risks also. So how are them two being managed, please? And then the last one, how are you going to improve the stage 2 response times? Because I think the target's 90% and we're on around 60. So just them 3, but obviously the impact has been the rollout of the service. But I think it's right to ask, you're saying it's going to improve, so talk us through how we're going to do that, plus your other question, please.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Okay,
so I think generally Kevin spent a lot of time trying to improve the performance and worked closely with the waste service in particular to address the level of complaints. And I think moving into this year in quarter 1, we've seen a similar trend that the performance is still not where it should be. However, there's been a lot of work done since, and we're seeing significant improvements. So this, between the service and Kevin, we are confident now that the number of late complaints will be reduced and almost eliminated moving forward, because he is like a dog with a bone when he's trying to manage complaints. So we're assured that we've got a better system, and actually the number of complaints are reducing significantly. I think with stage 2, I mean, it's like stage 1 or stage 2, you know, I think that it doesn't matter at the moment. Most of your complaints are being handled at stage 2. And Kevin will explain why in a minute, but we do take a lot of your complaints straight to stage 2 because of the complexity of the complaint. So yeah, and I think, you know, as I say, we're looking at learning the lessons from what's happened to make sure that this doesn't occur in the future. However, you know, I think as Tony and I discussed this morning, when you're rolling out such a big programme, we didn't anticipate the number of complaints that we were going to get. And when you're under that much pressure, you've really got to prioritise the resources you've got. And that makes it really difficult. But we will make sure in the future, when there's any transformation programme going on that's going to have an impact on the wider public, we've got that complaints process built into the plan and resources dedicated to it. Is that model?
Yeah,
Is there, if I missed a bit?
really good. Just that reputational, because obviously,
and I
if you
think,
read
yeah,
the report, and we have to acknowledge it's difficult for staff. It's definitely improving
Yeah.
because we're all getting less calls.
Yeah.
But I think we should touch on that.
I think what we should look at, although 98 complaints went into the actual ombudsman, only 6 were dealt with as a complaint, which shows that actually we've got our complaints process right. Because if we didn't have our complaints process right, then they would be dealing with a lot more. Now we know some of them went in early. I think about half of them went in premature, so people hadn't waited until they'd been through the complaints process. But the rest of that lot the ombudsman did not want to investigate further because we had handled the complaint correctly, or there was not a complaint to be dealt with. So I think we should be reassured, although the numbers had gone up, the actual number that were investigated were quite small. And that should give us the reassurance that the ombudsman is happy with how we're handling our complaints.
Yeah, that's good. And just come back just very quickly. So that sounds great. Sounds like you've got a handle on it. It's not got better, but you think it's going to get better.
Yeah.
So I just guess how's that going to be checked? I don't think we can wait. Can a note come back to us, or just to monitor that? Because it's good what you're saying,
Yeah.
but you're being honest. We're not there yet.
No.
But I don't think we can wait another 12 months. So
there is a quarterly report goes to scrutiny. So our internal Your Voice report goes to scrutiny every quarter. It goes as an information report. But whether you're happy with that and you want to see a copy of that, I don't know what's the best way forward. Maybe Gary can.
I think we could circulate a link to that report to members, and then if members read it and thought there was something they wanted to discuss, then they could always seek to add it to an agenda.
Okay.
And I think that's good. It shows that we're not just taking your word, we're checking it, but obviously you understand there's an issue, you're working on it, and the data and graphs sounds like it's getting better, and the resources there. So that'd be good. Jochavow, thank you.
Councillor Bobby Feely, Borodar. Good morning, Bobby.
Morning, Chair. Thank you. There is mention in the report that, and as Anne has also mentioned, that we need to review the way we respond to mass complaints of that nature. But I would say that we need to review the way we carry out any transformational change. Because if we look at it honestly and openly, the waste changes were overly complicated, which is why we had such a terrible reaction. And can I mention also on the reputational damage that has been done to the council? It has been little, I've got to describe it as pretty catastrophic, and it's not all related to waste. The waste has kicked off dissatisfaction in other areas that perhaps we would not have had if our reputation had not gone down because of what took almost a year to put right. So I just think we need to acknowledge, and the report really should acknowledge, that we need to review the way we carry out any transformational change in future and try and sort of nip it in the bud if we see that it is overcomplicated and certain parts of it are unnecessary or it would stop us handling it badly in future, whatever it may be. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Bobby. I'm not here to talk about the waste service in detail, or the pros and cons of it today, but I would disagree that the issues were caused by it being overcomplicated. The issues were caused largely because we underestimated the amount of resource required for that new service. I think it's not because it's overly complicated. However, not here to talk about that. Here to talk about the point is a valid one, and we've acknowledged that already. With any further transformational projects like this, we need to give more consideration to the impact that it might have on complaints. We did anticipate the need for things like additional resources in our customer services team for this project, but for similar reasons that I mentioned earlier, that turned out to be insufficient additional resource in customer services. But the impact on complaints definitely would need to be looked at in future. I mean, this was the biggest transformational change the council has ever undertaken in terms of an operational frontline service. And there are lots of lessons to be learnt. There's an internal project team lessons learned process as part of the closing down of the project, and also there's a member task and finish group looking at the waste project, and there'll be lessons learned drawn from that as well. But certainly this is one of them. But we've already acknowledged that, but it's a fair point. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Tony. Just to come in there also, just relating back to something you mentioned in the minutes following the meeting we had as individual GSE members with the auditors, one of the things that was proposed was to have a workshop on projects once the internal audit of project management is done. And one of the things we wanted to look at from assurance was the way that project management, the way that projects are managed in the authority. And so I think that would cover that to some extent anyway. So, okay. Nigel Rudd. Good morning, Nigel.
Morning, thank you, Chair. I start on the basis that GAC doesn't operate in order to bayonet the wounded. And I think this is a very important report because it reflects on a particular incident in particular, and the figures are skewed on the basis of that incident. I've got several questions. Can I first check with Gary, if I can, for an update on what the powers are of the Ombudsman in relation to findings against an authority? What's the repertoire of weaponry that the PSOW has, Gary, please?
I'll attempt to answer that, but Kevin knows more about it than I do, so I'm sure he'll put me straight if I go wrong. What the Ombudsman's office would look to do in the vast majority of cases is look to see if they could find an early resolution. Once they've determined, in the first instance, has anybody been through the council's complaints process? If so, is there a valid complaint for them to look at? Accepting all of that, if they decide to look at something, they will be looking, first of all, to try and see whether or not they can facilitate an early resolution. They would ask the council to take a look at the complaint again. They would speak to the complainant, and you'll see if you go on the Public Service Ombudsman for Wales website, they have a useful section there called Our Findings, which give examples of, or rather report on matters that they've looked into. And the vast majority of those you'll see are resolved by early resolution. So that would be some form of voluntary agreement to change a practice or to relook at something, and it may even involve the payment of some compensation. In terms of their report, they will make recommendations. They would hope that the relevant authority would take up those recommendations. If an authority wasn't happy with some of the recommendations or the complainant wasn't happy, there would be a back and forth between the two and the Ombudsman to see if they could agree what those recommendations should be. If in the event the Ombudsman feels that they have recommendations to make and they're not being agreed by people, then they have the power to issue a public report effectively to set out that they've made these recommendations and that they've not been agreed. In terms of financial redress, there's a scheme on the Ombudsman's website which sets out, I think, 4 levels of financial redress. Those levels of financial redress are pretty low. and the Ombudsman does set out on their website that they're not really there to deal with things that people could obtain compensation from or in respect of through a claim in the courts. They'll only take up a complaint that could be, if you like, a legal action if it seems that it's reasonable in all the circumstances to do so because of the difficulties that might be involved in bringing a claim. So they don't have a great deal to do in the way of financial redress. I think the maximum is around just over £2,000, and neither can they enforce that. So if the Ombudsman recommends that a local authority pay somebody £500 in compensation, they can't. They have no power to take that through the courts. Clearly, local authorities and the Ombudsman want to work together. Their common purpose is to improve the way in which public authorities deliver services, and it's highly unusual for a local authority not to accept the recommendation made by the Ombudsman, because their principal purpose isn't to hit everybody over the head. It's to try and resolve a complaint and improve practice where that's required. So that's a very long-winded answer, I know, Nigel, but effectively they don't have a lot of weaponry. If we were going to talk about it in weapon terms, they don't have a lot. What they do is they try and make sure that they get a resolution so that people are satisfied. And the vast majority of people who have their complaints resolved by the Ombudsman, it's resolved on the basis of a change to the way in which their issue has been dealt with, or a change to the practice of the local authority or the health body, because an awful lot of these complaints relate to health bodies. It's not common that there's significant compensation being awarded, although sometimes it's a voluntary thing that local authorities can enter into. I've been looking over at Kevin just to see if I've missed the mark there, so I'd be happy for Kevin to correct anything I've just said.
I wouldn't correct anything that Gary said. I would add that I've been in the role since 2017, and I think it was 2019 where the council paid £250 to a complainant as a result of an intervention with the Ombudsman. Other than that, nothing in the time that I've been in post. So it's very, very unusual to get to that stage.
So through you, Chair, the supplementary that I had on that particular question was, given the weaponry that the Public Service Ombudsman does have, what, if any, have been used in relation to any of the waste complaints or any of the other complaints that have actually ended up with the Service Ombudsman?
I'd pass that to Kevin if I could, Chair.
Yeah.
The only point I would make is that despite the number of complaints, the intervention rate by the Ombudsman in respect of Denbighshire is very low, 6%. I think of the 22 local authorities, only 3 authorities have a lower intervention rate than the council. So if we're the 4th best performing in that context, but Kevin will probably have more detail about anything that may have happened.
Relating to the waste complaints and the interventions and the inquiries we've had from the Ombudsman, out of the recommendations they've made, only 3 were related to the actual waste service. There were another couple that were related to public plan and protection. So in terms of the intervention from the Ombudsman regarding the service change, they've been happy with what we've told them. And they've been happy with the complaint responses that they've seen and the responses that we've been giving people. So we haven't really had any issues with the Ombudsman regarding that service change.
Okay. Nigel, you got more questions, sir? I think he's frozen. Nigel, if you can hear us, I think you're frozen. We're not getting anything from you. We'll go back to you, I think, yeah. Once if you can hear us, you can come... let us know when you're back on again. But any members, any other members, questions? Just a couple from myself, please. The paragraph 417 mentioned the code of conduct complaints. It's in the Ombudsman's annual letter, and I'm taking account of what's been said about the reliability of that there. But Appendix F in the Ombudsman's letter shows the for each authority. would it be possible to ask the Ombudsman to give a comparison with previous years? The reason I ask that is code of conduct, but bearing in mind we're the Governance and Audit Committee, and later on in this committee, in this meeting, we're receiving a report on the proposed code of, the draft code of corporate governance for the authority, and that stresses that governance is more than just processes, the way that people behave, members and officers behave. So if there's any major trend in code of conduct complaints in Denbighshire, but also for other authorities as well, it's something that we would probably need to take account of. So I wonder if some representation could go back to them so we can have some comparison figures there.
I think we can probably put it in our covering report when we get it. So just for clarity, over the last 3 years, the numbers have been pretty static. They've been 6, 7 and 5.
Okay.
So I did check back on the letters that I had access to. So yeah, they're pretty static in that respect, but we can make sure that's included in our report.
Sure.
Next year. Okay.
And just for the committee's assurance, the Ombudsman's annual report will be going to the Standards Committee in December with a particular focus around the Code of Conduct. So whilst we have an annual letter, the Ombudsman produces an annual report. The annual letter is effectively a summary of the report, but we'll be taking the report to Standards Committee so that they can dig into the Code of Conduct figures. And again, they're interested, not just the County Council, because they are the Standards Committee for all of the town, city and community councils within the area. So that's what. So there will be another focus on that somewhere else.
That came from that could be applied to the council if required. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Also from me, is there assurance that all I'm not doubting the figures in front of us at all, but just I suppose it's a auditor's type question, but is there assurance that all the complaints are properly handled through the system? There's no standalone that people have declared UDI, and they, as a former auditor, I've seen this happen in other authorities where some sections decide to set up their own complaint section unilaterally, and their own complaints process unilaterally. There's no evidence of that at all. What I'm suggesting is to detect that you would look at figures. There's a sudden drop, an unexpected drop in figures for 1 year. I just wondered,
No, we're
do we look for
confident
that?
everything goes through Kevin. So he's there as a statutory complaints officer for social services, because we need to have one, but then obviously as the corporate complaints officer, everything comes through the one email address, and the links are on our website. And we've actually got somebody from education that now works with alongside Kevin, because at one point education through schools dealt with our own complaints, but we've actually got that resource now. So
Yeah.
Kevin has that, we work together. I don't know if there's anything you want to say on top of that, Kevin.
Yeah, the only difference would be planning and public protection, because they deal with things that would be outside the complaints process, third-party complaints, noise, pollution, so on and so forth. That's the only difference within the council. Everything else goes through the process.
Being a fairly well-established system and so on, but I suppose it's just obvious question is just to make sure that everything does come through it. There's no one declared UDI on it and doing their own thing. And the other point, it was just a small observation. Appendix 1, because bearing in mind, I think these reports are going elsewhere, are they, these figures? I think there's a small error there on the calculation error on the education and children's services total. It looks like the corporate total has been added on there. So just for future reference, if it's going somewhere else. But
Kevin acknowledges there was a mistake in it, so yeah, apologies on that one.
it proves you that I've read the report as well. So.
Apologies.
I don't think if members have got any other questions. Is Nigel Rudd back with us? Because he was.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Nigel. Sorry, back to you.
I've got a technical. I've had to switch machines at this end, but I'll keep the audio going. I had several other questions, if I could, on
Yes, please. Yeah.
waste complaints one, please, Chair.
Yes. That's fine.
The reason I raised the first issues in respect of the volume of complaints, I think there was a point that's raised in the report about the numbers where officers are indicating that the service ombudsman, in getting direct representations from complainants that haven't been through the local authority, record those representations as complaints. If If they could clarify that aspect for me first, Chair, please.
Thank you.
Yeah, everything the Ombudsman gets from a member of the public, they class that as a complaint. So even though from our point of view, we haven't actually seen it, and even if it's not valid, for argument's sake, if it was a complaint relating to information that would go through the ICO's office, the Ombudsman would still record that as a complaint that's been made to them. So they will record everything that goes through their office, whether it's actually a valid complaint or not.
Yeah, through you. Thank you, Chair. I think that's unfair. I think that misrepresents the level of complaints that an authority has had the opportunity to deal with. And I would suggest, potentially as a committee, that we make representations to the Service Ombudsman about the methodology used in recording those complaints, because in a situation that affected us last year to significant impact in terms of the levels of complaints, and it overstates, I think, the position in regard to the effectiveness of the authority in handling those complaints. So I'd ask for serious consideration to be given about representations on methodology on that aspect. I don't know if the officers would be supportive of that or committee, but if I could put that back to committee for consideration in a moment. Next question I have, Chair, is in relation to Appendix E, the compliance level, where out of the 18 recommendations made, only 50% approximately were complied with within due time. Now, this does reflect on the efficiency of the local authority, and I wondered whether there was more explanation as to why only 50% was achieved on Appendix E in relation to that matter, Chair, please.
Okay, so
Could you respond to both Nigel's points, please? Thank you.
yeah, on the first point, yeah, we will, if the committee want us to make representation to the Ombudsman, we will do that on your behalf. And then on the second one, yeah, there was 10 recommendations, 8 due in year. 4 of them that were late, 3 of them related to one complaint. So yeah, and that was around complaint handling, wasn't it? So it's really difficult because they list the recommendations separately, but quite often they are related to a smaller number of complaints. It's not that there was 10 complaints that were late or 8 complaints that were late. It was actually 2, and 3 of the actual recommendations were for one complaint. I don't know if you want to.
Essentially, if that was one complaint and within that complaint there were 10 recommendations, that would still read as 10 in the Ombudsman's figures by the way they report it. I wasn't aware of this because I questioned the figures with the Ombudsman about a month ago when the report came through, and they came back and told me how they actually work out the figures. So it is unusual.
And if we're even just a day late and we're letting the Ombudsman know that we're going to be late, if he's gave us a target, or they've given us a target date to respond by, even though we're acknowledging and we're keeping them up to date where we're up to, anything beyond that target date is classed as late. So sometimes it is outside our control, because we've had examples before where it's included a policy change. Policy change doesn't just happen straight away, because obviously it's got to go through committee. So we've got experience in the past where we've gone back to them, notified them, but if they've given us a target date, even by keeping them up to date, they still class that as a late response if we haven't done it within the times they've set us. So sometimes it is out with our control, but that's how it's recorded. So.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Helpful explanation. Fourth question for you. I did look at the planning and building control numbers. They're combined at the moment. You may be aware that elsewhere on the agenda this morning, we have an internal audit report that's looking at planning services. Can you separate out for me this morning the numbers of complaints for planning and the numbers of complaints for building control, please?
Is that in the Ombudsman's letter?
That's in the Appendix B, I think it is.
Yeah, that's how the Ombudsman classify the complaints. It's not our classification. I don't think we will be able to break that down, will we? No. No, unfortunately not, because it's the way the Ombudsman classifies the complaints.
So through you, Chair, are you saying that you do not know and we are not advised as to how the categorisation of a complaint in the planning and building control section of the services of the council is made?
The Ombudsman contacted all the local authorities when they put their reporting together, and they came up with categories. When we report to the Ombudsman, we have to put our categories, we have to make them fit within the Ombudsman's. So we report in a slightly different way to the Ombudsman, but we have to give them figures, and they come. That's why you've got some of the figures that they have from the Ombudsman in the chart. They don't marry with our charts because they report differently.
So through you, Chair, I'm just have another go at this. Kevin, it's not having a go. It's just trying to clarify. Do we have internally a list of the number of complaints that have affected, from our perspective, the planning service?
Internally, yes. Within the appendix we have for each service broken down. There is a chart there that breaks each service department down.
Okay, and
In the
do you have the number of
Hold on,
complaints?
Nigel. Sorry, just to
Yeah, sorry,
clarify,
John.
they're in the appendices of the complaints report.
We haven't, they're in the appendix 1 of the complaints.
Yes.
So the Your Voice complaints
That's
report,
right.
and it's we've got the complaints table broken down by service.
Sure.
So for 24-25, there were 9 complaints in total for planning and public protection at stage 1, and 8 at stage 2, but that's under planning and public protection.
Back to you, Nigel. Sorry.
I'm really trying to get my head around the planning numbers on the basis of any trend change that may have happened, which I haven't asked about yet. Has it gone up or down over the last 12 months? Because there's a report elsewhere on the agenda that's materially affected or could be impacting on that level of complaints. And that's what I was trying to identify and make that link between the service areas and our level of complaints, Chair.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Gary, did you want to come in there? Sorry.
Only that it might help, maybe not, but page 30 of your pack is the chart that shows the breakdown for each service. So you'll see that planning public protection there has 9, but then there's a breakdown of the different sections within planning and public protection.
And for last year, there was 12 stage
Recording in progress.
and 16 stage 2 complaints for planning and public protection. So there's a reduction this year.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Chair, for that. Final question. The waste project has clearly had an impact on the authority. There was reference to it from Tony earlier saying now is not the time to be discussing that. It would, however, be helpful to have a smart update in relation to where we are on the scrutiny review, task and finish work on that review of the project, please.
Can I help? In terms of the scrutiny review, there's a member task and finish group has been established. They've agreed their terms of reference. They've been looking at their work streams. There's a meeting next Monday afternoon of the task and finish group where they will be discussing issues with various officers as the first part of their review. And they will have scheduled further meetings. I don't have the dates in front of me, but they will have further meetings scheduled before they report back to their parent scrutiny committee. The member task and finish group is being supported by Democratic Services, and a large amount of information has been collated already for the task and finish group, and they're into the position now where they'll begin their meetings where they will start discussing issues with officers, etc., to look for lessons learned. And the first of those is on Monday afternoon.
I think could that come to this committee in some shape or form? We don't want to get involved in the details of the process and the specific changes that might have been made, but we would be interested in any project management issues or anything else that would be applicable to other projects.
I'll be honest, I don't think that review needs to come here because it's going through quite a long process of its own through task and finish group, then back to scrutiny, and will probably end up at some point being reported elsewhere. I suppose I'd look to Bob in terms of his audit of project management generally and the lessons being learnt from the project teams, in-depth lessons learnt at the end of the project, as well as the task and finish group. That will probably feed into the work that Bob's doing.
And indeed the project, the workshop that with this, the committee, the members of this committee are going to have once that's done, as we mentioned before. So we probably would pick up any lessons, corporate lessons learnt that way.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, Nigel.
Thank you, Chair. It's just the assurance in relation to the process that I was after for GAC.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions on this report, this item? So the recommendation is that the committee considers the content of this report and, if appropriate, identifies any areas that require action or further scrutiny. I don't know what the suitable resolution would be for this, but I think the committee has considered the contents of the report of this report. And do we need to record any areas that require further scrutiny from what we said?
I don't think so. I think you can just note that you just probably need to confirm whether or not you agree with Nigel's suggestion about making representations to the Ombudsman about the issues that he raised.
I propose that we do make those suggestions to the Ombudsman. Can I have a proposer for that, please? Accept the report with those. Seconder? Sorry, proposer. Sorry, not with Carol Halliday. Sorry, thank you. Seconder? Mark Young. All in favour? I can't see if Nigel's got his hand raised or not. So.
In favour, Chair.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much for that report, and thank you for taking the things on board there. Appreciate the time. Thank you. Yeah.
We are going to separate it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Right. Thank you. Not just yet. Baradar. Good morning, Bob. Good morning, Dennis. Councillor Jones. Good to see you here. Thank you for the report. This is the update for the Governance and Audit Committee on internal audit's latest progress in terms of service delivery, assurance provision, reviews completed, performance and effectiveness in driving improvement. I take it, Bob, it's to the 31st of August. Yeah, okay. Just before we have any introduction, so that people know what's happening, we're going to have the customary introduction by the lead member, I think, and then a summary by Bob. And what I think we'll do then, because there's, as already been mentioned, there's a major report with some findings on regarding planning. We'll take questions on the planning issue first, because we've got a number of officers and Councillor James here on that. And then once we've dealt with the planning issue, we'll then go to other aspects of the report. So we'll do this in 2 blocks, members. I think that's the easiest way to do it. Councillor Jones, do you want to?
Diolch yn fawr. Da, dwi'n mynd i siarad yn Gymraeg. Rwy'n mynd i chi roi plistia ymlaen. Thank you. Diolch yn fawr. Mae'r adroddiad yma'n rhoi wybodaeth diweddara i chi am y cynnydd y wnaed yn erbyn cynllun archwiliau hyd yma yn ogystal â throsolwg byr o'r lefelau sicrwydd sy'n gysylltiedig a'r adolygiadau o gwblhawyd. Mae atodiad 1 yn rhoi'r wybodaeth ddiweddaraf am y gwaith archwilio mewnol a wnaed ers yr adroddiad diwethaf i'r pwyllgor yma. Ers hynny, mae 12 adroddiad archwilio mewnol wedi cwblhau, gyda 10 yn cael sgôr sicrwydd uchel.
Excuse me, sorry,
Chi'n
I'm
clywed fi?
not getting anything with this at all. I just tried.
Guessing it.
It was working before. I do apologise.
It's all right, I can convert to English if there's an issue. Yeah, no, they sometimes don't, do they? Don't. You're right, Carol. Yours working.
I'm sorry.
I can start again. Yes, not a problem. You all right? I think there's another issue here. Oh, all right, da chi'n iawn, Ron, pawb yn iawn? Un ai ddechrau eto. I'll start again. Diolch yn fawr. Mae'r adroddiad yma yn rhoi'r wybodaeth ddiweddaraf i chi am y cynnydd o wneud yn erbyn y cynllun archwilio hyd yma. Yn ogystal â throsolwg byr o'r lefelau sicrwydd sy'n gysylltiedig â'r adolygiadau a gwblhawyd. Mae atodiad 1 yn rhoi'r wybodaeth ddiweddaraf am y gwaith archwilio mewnol a wnaed ers yr adroddiad diwethaf i'r pwyllgor yma. Ers hynny, mae 12 adroddiad archwilio mewnol wedi cwblhau, gyda 10 yn cael sgôr sicrwydd uchel, a 2 arall sydd yn adolygiadau proses nad oes ganddynt sgôr sicrwydd. A un ohonynt oedd yr un hefo'r polisi cynllunio oeddech chi'n sôn amdano fo. Mae'n bwysig nodi, bod cynnydd wedi wneud yn erbyn y cynllun yma, rhwng mis Ebrill a rwan, nid oes cymaint o gynnydd ac y byddem wedi ddymuno oherwydd bod tair cwyn chwythu chwiban wedi gwneud yn ystod y flwyddyn ariannol gan arwain at ymchwiliadau archwilio mewnol yn cael eu cychwyn i'r 3, lle mae hynny wedi cael effaith ar y rhaglen. Hefyd, oherwydd bod lefel uchel absynoldeb salwch yn ystod yr un cyfnod gan gyfrif am golli 70 diwrnod. Mae cynllun archwilio mewnol eleni wedi rannu o dan 7 pennawd i sicrhau cynllun hyblyg sy'n darparu sylw i bob maes allweddol. Bydd hyn yn rhoi sicrwydd i'r prif archwilydd mewnol ar ddiwedd y flwyddyn ariannol fod systemau'r cyngor yn gweithio'n effeithiol a bod rheolaethau priodol ar waith. Mae'r cynllun yn un hyblyg ac nid yw'n cynnwys cymaint o adolygiadau ac mewn blynyddoedd blaenorol mwyn caniatáu'r hyblygrwydd yma. Gellir gweld manylion o'r adolygiadau o dan bob pennawd a'i statws yn yr adroddiad a mae rhai ohonynt bellach wedi cwmpasu. Gweler adran 4.4. Mae'n bwysig nodi mae rôl yr archwiliad mewnol ac felly chithail Pwyllgor Llywodraethu ac archwilio yw monitro perfformiad ac ymdrin a chamau sy'n deillio o'r adolygiadau archwilio. Cyfrifoldeb yr rheolwyr i'w ymdrin a'r camau adolygu hyn, cyfnodi unrhyw gynnydd ar y system rheoli perfformiad FERTO a chyfrifoldeb y Pwyllgor Craffu i'w darparu cwestiynau a heriau priodol i'r cynnydd ar y camau a gymryd. Mae'r chwilio mewnol yn parhau i gynnal dilyniannau ac adrodd ar gynnydd yn erbyn cynlluniau gweithredu, sy'n deillio o archwiliadau sicrwydd isel i sicrhau bod gwelliannau yn cael ei gweithredu. Mae gennau Bob Chowdhury yma efo fi i gynorthwyo gyda unrhyw gwestiynau neu sylwadau sydd gennym ni, a hoffwn i ddiolch iddo fo a'r tîm am ei gwaith parhaus.
Diolch, thank you.
Diolch, thank you, Delith. Right then, as Delith said, this year we haven't hit the plan as much as I'd like to. We've done 5 reviews from 24-25, as Delith said. 4 of them got high assurance. 1 was a process review, and we don't give a rating for a process review. So this year we've managed to do 7 reviews. 6 have received high assurance, and 1 is the review around the planning application, which is a process review, and we don't give a rating on. I think it's important that I draw your attention to the audit plan, how it works, but this year we've broke it down into 7 tables. Tables 1 to 6, as I said to you in June when I brought the plan before this committee, they're the 6 areas I'm looking to achieve this year. Table 7, which is listed as the 26-27, they're areas that have been raised with heads of service, corporate directors, and obviously on the risk register that we've considered and appreciate in the next 12 to 24 months. These will be areas that we need to look at. So we've put them down in table 7 so that we can start monitoring, hopefully, if we get some spare capacity. I think it's worth saying to you the tables in my audit plan 27 or in this pack 79 onwards, you will notice that there's 5 different headings there: not started, scoped, fieldwork, draft, report and completed. As of yesterday, we've now completed 8 reports, which equates to 16% of the plan, which isn't brilliant, but I need to draw your attention to the other work that we have to do before we can complete a review. So scoping is quite an important area, and you'll notice 16 reviews have now been scoped. So that's 31% of the plan that are now scoped and ready to go, which is a piece of work that has to happen before we can do this. And obviously, it's part of the review. Fieldwork, we have 5 in fieldwork, which is 10%, and we have 5 reports in draft at the moment. I was hoping 2 of them would have been turned around yesterday, but unfortunately we couldn't get them turned around. They'll probably go out on Thursday because the colleague working on those reports is in college today. So although it doesn't look great on paper, I'm confident that there's been quite a bit of work done in the background. When you think we've got a post at the moment that we haven't recruited into, and the head of finance and audit and myself, we do have regular one-to-ones, and we discussed that post. Just to give you some feedback on that particular post, it's still not going to be filled, but what we have agreed is over the next 2 months I'm going to do a piece of work to look at how confident I am of completing tables 1 to 6. Any areas that I feel we might not be able to complete, I'm going to put a proposal together to Liz, and then hopefully we will in Q4 buy in some audit services to complete the areas that we have weaknesses in, and therefore complete all 6 tables. As Delith's mentioned, we've got 3 special investigations on the go at the moment. They are time consuming, as you'll be appreciative of, and obviously we're coming to the completion of 2 of them, and the 3rd one is still ongoing. As I complete them, we will share those reviews with the members of this committee, as we always do all our reviews, so you'll be able to read what we've done and obviously the outcome of each of those reports. Delith also pointed out that this year we've had 70 days lost to sickness. Again, that's high for the service, but the team is now back to full capacity, and I'm hoping that going forward we don't have any more sickness, and if that is the case, I am confident that we will be able to look at completing all 6 tables. Pages 21 to 23 in my report, or in the pack 73 to 75, outline the Audit Wales reviews that are currently ongoing with the council. When the reports are finalised, I put links in, and obviously as the reports become final, you'll get the links, and then obviously happy for you to ask questions on those as and when, and colleagues from Audit Wales are always available. But obviously for the process type reviews, if you need support on any of them, then I can get colleagues from Audit Wales in. Page 23 of the report, my report, sorry, and page 75 in the pack gives you the Eston reviews that have been completed in the last 12 months. You'll notice that there's 21 Eston reports that have been completed. 1 is a monitoring report. 1 is judged to have made sufficient progress, so that's really good news. 1 is a local authority linked inspector report. 7 have just been interim visit letters, and the remainder have all been no follow-up action required. So again, that's good. Although I do need to add in there, we do have one school in special measures still, and that is ongoing. Page 24 of the internal audit update, or the page 76 of the pack, provides the CIW and other reports, and again there's links in there for you to see each of those individual reports. I feel it is important that any report that comes into the council I share with you, so as new reports come in, that table will become bigger over the next few years, because there are a couple new reports that are coming out, and once I get those on, I will put those in for the next update in January. Page 25 of the internal audit update pack, or page 77 of this pack, provides you with an update around the progress of the team. And I'm pleased to say that 3 of the team have now started their Institute of Internal Auditors. It's a 3-module course. It takes between 2 and 3 years. It's not set out that they have to do it in set time, but they get 3 years to do it. The 3 of them have completed module 1 as we speak, and they're hoping to sit their first exam before Christmas. So all going well, in 3 years' time at the latest, I will have 3 members who will be certified Institute of Internal Auditors, which will address the issue that's been raised a few times around staff qualifications within the team. Page 32 of the internal audit update, or page 84 on the pack, provides you with progress against our counter fraud work. And then finally, page 34 of the internal audit update, or 86 of the pack, provides you with our performance targets. And overall performance has improved since the last report in April, with all performance measures being achieved, with the exception of issuing a final report within 5 days after agreeing an action plan. This figure has moved from 5.9 to 6 days, and the target is 5 or under. And this is due to the team struggling with a higher than normal level of sickness. That's all I'd like to say here, and I'm happy to field any questions from yourselves. Diolch.
Bob, before we open up to any questions generally, so I'd like to deal with the planning applications issue first, please, which is on pages 64 and 65 of the pack. So bearing in mind we've got quite a number of, we've got a member and several officers in attendance for that issue. I think it'd be good to deal with that now, and then any other questions on the rest of the on the rest of the report will follow after. So I don't know if Councillor Alan James is here. I believe Emlyn Jones, the head of services, in attendance there. Forgive me, I don't know everybody's name. Paul Mead, is it? Welcome. Yeah, thank you. And I think we've got some, I can't read the names, we've got some ICT staff in attendance as well. Dover.
Help you there, Chair. You've got Marcus Woodworth, who's the ICT lead officer, and you've got Davan Barr, who's been working on this
thank you.
project.
I can't read the names from here. The name's too small. It's the IT, sorry. So welcome. Thanks for attending here today. Bob, do you want to give a summary?
Well, all I'd like to say is I've also got Sarah on board, who's the auditor who carried out the piece of work. So Sarah's here as well. Yeah, I mean, it's a process review that we have started doing over the last 2 or 3 years. A process review is around looking at the service. So we normally meet with the service manager, his or her team, and we sit down normally over 1.5 to 2 days, and we map out the process from start to finish, in this case, completing the planning application. The team are open and honest with us. They give us the good parts of the systems, they give us the bad parts. We then act as a sounding board to a degree, where we can throw back ideas, suggestions back to them. Some quite quickly get knocked back saying it's impossible, others hadn't thought of that, thank you very much. So that's a process review. We then look at the actions, recommendations. As I say, we don't give an overall opinion, but we have in this report, obviously you've only got the audit opinion here, but in the body of the report you received in September, August was it? You will have had all the actions that we addressed or we identified. Thank you.
Okay, so I think I think members have had a chance to look at this. I know there's some questions on this. I see Emlyn, you've got your hand up. Do you want to come in there?
Oh, thank you. It was just to for that, Paul. It was just really just to add a few words to Bob's intro there, just to thank Bob and the team, because it's really helpful for Bob and the team to go into a service to do these process reviews, because they're very kind of proactive rather than being reactive. So it's us working with internal audits to, when we've changed the system or a process or something changes in the service, is bringing Bob and the team into the team to actually review what's working well, what isn't, and then to to work with us on it. So just to thank Bob and the team really for the work that they've done here. So it's been very helpful. Thanks.
Thank you. Just to remind members, in the detailed report that we got back in August, there were a number of risk issues. There was staff, resource and capacity. The risk severity was major. Regarding the new system, IDOCS and the procurement of that was a critical issue. That's particularly why we're interested today. But also there were two more major areas as well: legislative changes and also performance monitoring and reporting. So over to members. Mark Young.
Okay, thank you, Chair. And obviously, I work with the officers here today as a member of the Planning Committee and also Chair. But today I've got a different hat on. But I am and will be a critical friend. But we're all here to work together to get it better. And I know the officers have been very honest, because it's in the report, and we all want to work together to get it better, which has been a very difficult time. So I have a couple of questions, if that's okay. Okay, so capacity and backlog. So what's the current size of the backlog and what steps have been taken to reduce it? And how long are resident developers waiting on average for determinations of, and how's this compared to the government targets? That's one. And then IDOCS, the planning system. When will the IDOCS system be fully operational? How is the supplier being held accountable? And what arrangements are in place if the IT system continues to underperform? And then the last one, Chair, if I may, is compliance. What processes are in place to ensure that the new legal requirements are incorporated without delay? And how are the risks being managed in the meantime? Because as an example of that, the staff are currently manually requesting missing information, etc. So just those three, please. Jock and Val, thank you.
I don't know who the best person is to respond to that, but I'm sure you can work it out. So.
That'll probably be me, Chair, if that's okay. Thank you very much. I'll bring others in as and when over the course of the questioning. Yeah, thanks to Councillor Young. As he pointed out there, we do work with Councillor Young on a regular basis, Chair of Planning Committee, so we run the monthly Planning Committee and involve him, and obviously with our lead member, Councillor Alan James. The first point that was raised there, I think, was in relation to some statistical information in terms of where we are currently with our planning applications. In terms of the process, members will probably understand that people have only got one place to go when they're submitting planning applications. It's to us as the local planning authority. They submit applications either through a planning portal, which is an online form that enables them to give us the relevant information and data, or they could submit it direct to us via email. There's a validation process for that, so certain planning applications need different types of information to make them valid, so I won't bore you with the details of how complex that is in terms of what information we require. But in terms of the current data, we've got 30 planning applications waiting to be validated within our system. That dates back to the 12th of September, so we're sort of around 2 weeks in terms of validating planning applications. In terms of the case load numbers that we've currently got, i.e. live planning applications within the system waiting to be determined, we have around 330 planning application cases. And you'd mentioned there in terms of how long people are generally waiting. The statutory sort of timescales for most applications is to try and get them determined within 8 weeks of validation and registering with us. Some are different. Some major applications have longer timescales.
we're clearly not meeting the 8-week deadline straight away, but we do have a process in place where we can ask for extensions of time with applicants on planning applications. So what I would say is that, in answer to your question, Councillor Young, it varies in terms of how quickly we determine planning applications. We are still determining some applications close to the 8-week timescale, but there are other applications that have probably been in the system, you know, well over a year in terms of some of the complex applications where we need more information. What we do try and do is keep as many people up to date and informed as possible. Clearly, we have to do that to ask them to sort of extend the time period within which we can determine the applications. So a lot of the officers in the team, even though we're quite short in officers in our team, the officers that are there have been there for a good number of years and have built up quite good relationships with the agents that tend to submit applications. So we will tend to be picking up the phone and saying, you know, we're not going to be able to determine this within 8 weeks. Can you give us an extension of time, etc. So hopefully that gives you the statistical information on the planning applications. The other key component to all of that, obviously in relation to where those planning applications go in terms of officers with the ability to deal with them, which again we can talk about that further on. I'm sure there'll be questions around staffing and capacity and the other qualifications that they've got, etc. The other key component to that is the use of an IT system, which, as you will already be aware, we were operating up until April of last year with a very old and outdated system that we'd had for 20 years called Northgate. They were basically a company that were about to switch off that system, so we needed to change and modernise and introduce a new IT system. So we went through a sort of project management and procurement process for that. And we do have our IT colleagues who might be able to answer questions on that. Councillor Young asked what is happening with that. And clearly the report highlights that things haven't gone well with that transition to the IDOCS system. There was an initial problem in terms of how people could submit applications through the planning portal and through the new IDOC system, which caused an initial delay of around 2 months where people weren't able to register the applications with us. So fundamentally, a backlog of about 180 applications built up within that first month or so, which was very difficult to deal with. We then resolved that, but then started to see other issues with the IDOC system in terms of processing and getting decisions out through the system as well. We've undertaken with our colleagues in IT to set up regular meetings with our account manager for IDOCS to go through some of the situations and the issues that we've been having. We've also set up a task and finish group involving members and staff as well to look at how we try and resolve some of those issues. That is ongoing. That process is ongoing. We are able to validate applications now. As I highlighted there, we've only got 30 in the system to be validated, and that dates back to around the 12th of September. So we're relatively up to date on people submitting applications and getting them validated. The determination of the applications, 2 things. One is staffing resources for the case officers to handle them. The second thing has still been ongoing problems with putting the applications through the IDOC system out the other end and issuing certificates of decision that we can be assured are legally binding and doing what they need to do. So I think in relation to that, there were a couple of other points Councillor Young raised there around changes in legislation and the ability for people to then submit details online that comply with things like green infrastructure and other ecological matters. We've not quite got there as yet in relation to those updates with the IDOC system to be able to be reassured that when an applicant is submitting all the information, it's ticked the box that they've submitted that particular document. So that needs a sort of double check with officers who will then get back in touch with the planning agents to ask them to submit further information as and when required. So I think in summary, it's been a pretty difficult 12 months for us, both in terms of staffing and in terms of the new IT system. We're trying to head in the right direction with that in terms of we've got a career grade planning officer post that is out to advert. We tried to recruit earlier this year in July and failed to recruit a suitable candidate to that. So we've now gone out to advert again. And some of the IT systems that I've talked about, we're resolving in our regular meetings with iDocs, and we've got workshops booked in where iDocs are going to come back in to our team and into the office to work through some of the issues that we keep identifying. So I'll leave it there if that's okay, Councillor Young, if that's answered your questions.
If I can just come back
Yeah.
on it just very quickly. So clearly the new iDocs planning system not working has had a major impact, and you're a motivated small team, and I think we have to acknowledge it. That's why I asked the question, because that is a hell of a thing for a team to deal with when they're already under pressure. Yeah, I think I would like some of the IT officers to come in on how we're holding them accountable, because clearly there's an issue and they do need to be held accountable. And you're saying stuff's happening. I'm concerned by the speed of that, but I'm sure the officers coming in on them points would be helpful.
Just before that happens, Paul, you mentioned about the backlog and so on. According to the audit report, there was also delays incurred on the old applications being transferred onto iDocs. Is that being remedied as well? It wasn't just the new ones coming on the system; it was the old ones presumably being transferred from the Northgate system to iDocs.
Yeah, the process by which applications that were submitted before the 6th of April 2024, we've been able to deal with them and process those applications as normal. It's the ones that we had submitted through the iDoc system post 6th of April that were causing us difficulties. So in some ways, some of the older applications that we had were easier to get through the system and to issue decisions on. Thank you.
Sorry, I think Councillor Long asked for
Bit of feedback.
ICT staff.
The IT staff. Dovan has been working in this, I know, or his colleague. I just think we need to really understand where we are with the iDocs, holding them to account and making sure that this is done quickly. Any support we need. We talk about training and all that. We're nearly at 2 years. So I think we all need to understand what's happening there.
Could either of the officers respond to that? Is that okay?
Yeah, I would hope that maybe Dovan or Marcus come in on that. I think just very, very quickly that we are hopeful now of getting this workshop with iDocs, but Dovan and Marcus will maybe be able to expand on that.
Yeah, bore da, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Thank
you. Welcome. Yeah, I'm Dovan Barr, ICT business partner. Involved in the procurement of the planning application for Denbighshire, the iDocs cloud application. I think Paul's covered a lot of the background there well in terms of what and in response to the question raised by Councillor Young. I think what I would add to that is that we have so to be honest, we're not new in Denbighshire to iDocs applications, so we have been having even Emlyn's service. They already have iDocs applications, so we've been having account management meetings for years, if you like. Anyway, what's happened, I think, since planning's come on board, it's iDocs has become more of a key supplier to the council, isn't it? Planning's a very important system to the council, so we've been obviously invited the planning Paul as planning manager onto those account meetings. We have those 3 monthly with our account manager. We actually are going to move those to 1 monthly because of to help us resolve the issues that are currently outstanding. So that's something that's in progress. I think iDocs have recognised slowly. I completely agree with Councillor Young's comments there. Yeah, but they have agreed that that the action needs to be taken by them, and they're very aware that we're not happy as a customer in terms of that. So certainly these workshops that Paul mentioned are in the case of being arranged at the point of asking what we want from those. And that's something hopefully the planning team can detail. In terms of holding them accountable, what we do have, of course, because this was I'll just touch a little bit on the procurement side of things. So we did go out to the open market for this product. We went out to market with Denbishire's terms and conditions. So it was, in other words, we have, if you like, as strong a basis, I suppose, from the legal perspective, that we've got a contract that's in place that suits Denbishire's needs more than it does so the supplier. So that's one thing to note, is we do have, the contract should be in our favour. So what we've done since the Task and Finish group meeting that was last week, I've asked the planning team to go through the specification. So in terms of a bit of a background there, the specification is essentially where we say to the open market, we need a system that will do X, Y, and Z. It must do this and it must do that. Or we'd like it to do this and we'd like it to do that. So we've got a specification. And we're in the process, this Task and Finish group will go through that specification, identifying where items have been delivered or not delivered by IDOCS. I think the next step from that will be, and some of this has already been verbally raised with the account manager at the meetings we've had, but I think a more formal response to IDOCS to say, right, we believe you haven't delivered on these items. We then take that from there. I think ultimately, because the specification does form part of the contract that we have, and their responses to the tender as well are part of that contract, that ultimately, should we need it, there would be that legal process to kind of support Paul and us in ICT and kind of getting that getting that addressed by the supplier. So I hope that adds a little bit more information to that, Councillor Young. Was there something else specific you'd like?
No, that's fine. I'll just say we're nearly 2 years. I hope you put them under pressure, because the time it's taken isn't good enough to the service or to our residents. But thanks for the response.
Thank you.
Right. Okay, Mark. Thank you. Bobby Feely.
Thank you, Chair, and apologies. Some of my questions and comments cover what Mark has already brought up, but I'll say it anyway as I prepared. So thank you for the report, Bob. It is very disappointing to see that our planning service is not operating a satisfactory service at this moment in time. And yet again, this severely affects our council's reputation with many dissatisfied residents. A service which incidentally they do pay for on top of their council tax. And you have a high level of sickness and absence, and I'm just wondering if that may be due to the stress of the situation you're in. And it feels like with the IDOC system, and similar problems have happened in finance when they've gone to a new system, because the old system was seen as not working anymore. The IDOC system, web-based planning system, is obviously not fully functional still after some time, which obviously hasn't helped anything. And I would just wondered, and Mark has touched on it, what is the timescale to bring up what was once an excellent planning service back to operational excellence once again?
Sorry, just before you respond to Councillor Feely, mention was made of the finance system there. I think it's been established with this committee in the past that the similar problems where the planning system do not apply to the finance system. I think that needs to be said. I know the head of finance is agreeing with me there. I think we've discussed that in this committee in the past. It's been said, and it's been said that's not the case. So for the purpose of the minutes and for people at this meeting, I don't think that applies to the finance system.
I beg your pardon. I thought they had.
Excuse me.
Sorry, Chair. Sorry, Chair.
Can I just finish, please? Unless there's information that we haven't been told of, we don't know that about the finance system. But Councillor Feely raised some valid questions about the planning system, and so perhaps you could respond to those. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thanks to Councillor Feely for her comments there. Yeah, I'd echo the sentiment there that we do want to get back to a position where we are providing an excellent service to our customers. I think in the years that I've been working here, we have been able to do that. So it's quite multi-layered, this, and I think that What I would say from the outset is that I have regular meetings with my colleagues across North Wales, and the planning system and the planning process is quite complicated. There's not a lot of young planners coming through the system, so recruitment is quite difficult. So I think that's something that I'd want to highlight quite early on. In terms of timescales, I think what I would say, and Emily might want to highlight this as well, I think if we can recruit into our vacant post, we also had 2 consecutive periods of maternity leave within our team, with 2 members of staff. So at one point we had 6 planning officers with the ability to handle a planning application caseload, and for the critical point of when we ended up transferring to IDOCs, we were down to 3. So that has caused us major issues in terms of our ability to process those applications. We're now back up to 4 planners in the team, and we've got a vacancy that we're hoping to fill fairly soon. I think with the IDOCs work that we're trying to do and the challenges that were put into IDOCs to fix the things that haven't worked properly for the last 12 months, I would like to see major progress on that early next year. So I would like to think that we'd be able to get backlogs of planning applications down steadily from the start of 2026 in terms of being able to recruit into the vacant post and having some of these process issues resolved with IDOCs. I think what I would emphasise as well, and I'm hoping members will acknowledge this, I think the staff that we've had retained within the team have always tried to communicate as effectively as possible with both members and members of the public. And again, I emphasise that there's always going to be difficulties in terms of complaints from people in relation to frustrations with the planning application process. But I think the relationship that a lot of our officers have got with local agents and other people submitting applications, house builders particularly, has been pretty good. So they've understood, they've been reasonable with us, and obviously they will look to see us improve next year. One final point I think I would also like to emphasise in relation to how the planning process works is that we're only as good as the information that we receive from other people. So when we go out to consult on planning applications, we're reliant on bodies such as Natural Resources Wales, our highways colleagues, ecology, landscape. We need that input to be able to determine planning applications in a robust manner. And I think what we've seen over the course of the last 4, 5, 6 years is that there's a bit of lack of resource in all those specialist areas as well. So I know we often say it to our members at Planning Committee that this application has been delayed for being determined at Planning Committee because we've been awaiting responses from various bodies to enable us to make that decision. So I just want to echo that as well. It's not always down to the staffing in our team or the IT system. It's even with a robust system in place, you're still reliant on people feeding into that process.
It's the nature of the beast, in other words.
It is, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Gary, Emily's just waiting to come as well.
Oh, yes,
So, yeah.
just a general point, if I may, Chair. I've let it go a bit, but we are naming a company here. We are saying things from our perspective about a product that the company has provided to us. They're not here to defend themselves. We just need to be a little careful. And if and when this turned into something else, in terms of our relationship with this company, we just need to be careful as to how we categorise some of the things.
Gary, can I just say I used the name because it's in the report. I would be quite happy to say a new system, but that wasn't indicated in the report.
That's true.
I'm not exactly, and I'm not. I wasn't actually directing that comment at any individual. Everybody's used the name. I think it's okay to use the name, just to be mindful about how we discuss some of those issues, because there is another organisation that isn't here to speak for itself.
Emlyn, I think you wanted to come in, didn't you?
Oh, thank you. Thanks very much. No, it's just Paul's covered a lot of it very well, so I've only got a few things to add, really. it was a perfect storm at that time. I think Paul shared all the things that we were facing and trying to manage at the time really well. So hopefully that's well understood. Some of those are national challenges as well around planning services and the pressures that we're facing. Just in response, really, we have got excellent officers, and this report highlights that. So from an excellent service perspective, we've got excellent officers that are doing their best within the resources that they've got, and they've faced a lot of pressures. The report also highlights the really strong working relationship between members on planning committee and officers, and that's been like that for many years now, and I would hope continues in that vein. And that's to do with both members and officers working really well together and having good lines of communication. So that report does highlight that, and I'll take that away with us really as a real strong point. We currently don't have any sickness in the team, just want to pick that up. And of course, we closely monitor the health and well-being of our staff in the service. And we are working now, and hopefully this is coming through quite clear, is that we've been working on this for a while, but it's escalating now into clear action plans that are documented and following our processes really to address these things. So
Okay, thanks, Emily. That's useful. Councillor Holiday and then Nigel Rudd.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask? You say about the backlog, and sometimes have you got what's the longest somebody's been waiting for planning permission because of thing? Thank you.
That's a very good question, Councillor Holiday. Members will probably be aware of the Denby Hospital scheme, which has been in the planning system for a good number of years now. Obviously, that's not necessarily related to staffing or the IDOT system. So that's why it's quite difficult for us to give direct sort of data on how long people are waiting for the determination of planning applications. I think I highlighted the fact that we have an 8-week target date to try and deal with planning applications, and I think back in the heyday of me starting as a planner, we were hitting that target pretty regularly. Nowadays, I think that you're probably looking at an average of maybe 3-4 months before we can determine planning applications. So it's a little bit longer, but in other instances it could be longer still because there's complexities like legal agreements and other things to try and resolve. Thank you.
Yeah, but you mentioned that there was some over 12 months. I'm concerned some maybe 2 years. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. There's probably cases that have been in the system for 1-2 years. I don't think that's different with other local authorities, to be honest with you, because often we can't determine some applications until people have put information to us, and we might be waiting for ecological seasons to come round, etc. There's a lot of complexities with it. I think the headline here is that we're not performing as we should be performing in terms of the speed of making the decisions. Thank
you. Nigel Rudd.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to officers for their responses on this. Can I just go back to the issue of capacity and competence in terms of this authority? I did give a heads up to officers just to inquire about the level of staffing that we have in DCC, the level of qualifications and an ability to compare as a benchmark across the rest of Wales. How do we sit in relation to those matters, please? First question.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Rudd. I did receive a heads up in terms of some of the questions there. So thank you very much for those. The numbers of planning staff that we've currently got that can determine planning applications, as I said before, we're up to 4 with 1 vacant post, so we're hoping to get that to 5. That compares lower than the other local authorities across North Wales in terms of the officers capable of determining planning applications. We've got 3 out of the 4 that we've currently got determining planning applications are all members of the Royal Town Planning Institute and have been working for well over 5 years in this particular capacity. There's another officer who's working towards being a member of the Royal Town Planning Institute at the moment. The career pathway planning officer vacancy that we've got, that is a pathway from a bottom of a grade 6 right the way through up to a grade 9, which within that pathway acknowledges people in terms of becoming members of the Royal Town Planning Institute and relevant experience of dealing with applications. So again, I think that compares in a similar way to other authorities across North Wales in terms of people being members of the Royal Town Planning Institute and being able to give evidence in planning appeals, etc. I think what I'd mentioned before was that having 6 planning officers with the ability to deal with planning applications was where we were at. We did lose 2 members of staff to the private sector, and one of those posts was taken up as part of the savings proposals for the council. So we are now down to 5 within the structure, and hopefully we'll get that post filled soon. I think I've answered a couple of your points there, Mr. Rudd, in relation to the staff numbers and the qualifiers in the Royal Town Planning Institute.
Yeah, thank you for that. I recognise there's a national shortage of planners, and the government's push for house building and similar putting pressures on this side of local government service. Are you doing any work in terms of trying to get feeder organisations through from universities like Sheffield, Cardiff, Nottingham, so that you've got an ability to recruit in either temporarily on internships or secondments or similar, or a working relationship with academia that allows you to recruit more easily and with some competitive edge over your alternative employers?
Yeah, that's a very good point. We did have meetings recently with the Welsh Local Government Association who were obviously talking about the throughput of planners through the education system and how we could look to maybe get apprenticeships in. The offer on that was put to us that we would still have to pay for the officer to be in post, but that they would pay for some of the training. So we are exploring that. The specific vacancy that we've got currently, which is quite apt that you asked that point. When we went out to recruit initially in July, we ended up interviewing one candidate, but they weren't suitable. We've subsequently paid more to go direct to universities and go direct to planning publications and planning and the planning system generally in terms of that advert. So we are hoping that this next round of recruitment will hopefully be targeting those people that you've mentioned there in relation to people coming through the system. I think as a body, the planning system has recognised this, and there are other authorities that are taking up the opportunity for apprenticeships. It's something that I'm really keen to do. In the first instance, we've gone out to advertise to universities and wider, and hope we can get someone in before the end of this year. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would encourage that process that you started there. I think it can be rewarding, both in the short and the long term. Have you got, as officers, all the delegation that you need from the council in order to improve and continue the improvement of the planning service generally at the moment?
Yeah, that's another great question. I think that really helps to have a strong scheme of delegation. We've already heard that the work that we do with our members is really good, and we communicate very well. So the numbers of applications that we have to refer to our planning committee are relatively low. Now that can obviously work slightly against us at times, because members might want more transparency and they want more applications coming before them at planning committee. But I think our scheme of delegation generally works well. We've reviewed it, I think, about a year and a half ago now with, I think, Audit asked us the question about that previously. So yeah, in answer to your question, I think we do have adequate delegation. I think the other element that I'd raise there as well is that we get quite a lot of renewable energy projects coming to us. So nationally significant infrastructure projects, developments of national significance. We're asked to, as a statutory sort of body, to contribute to that process, which again, we went to our planning committee to get delegated authority to deal with that in liaison with local and lead members. So that's really helpful. So I know a lot of other local authorities tend to have to take their local impact reports to planning committee to get sign off. So that's been really helpful as well. We're obviously always open to discussing with our members changes to our scheme of delegation to try and make it more transparent for those submitting applications. But at the moment, I think it works well. You might want to ask our chair of planning committee about that as well to see if it's if I'm answering correctly. Thank you.
Nigel, is it?
Yeah, I was. You anticipated my question there. Is that there's any representative of the planning committee at a political level in the room there that may wish to comment at this point in the debate? Then please encourage them to do so, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Nigel. And as a member of this committee and vice chair, it was good to be involved in this process. So I observed the audit, and Sarah was excellent. I didn't know whether we were going to laugh and cry in some of them meetings, but we come out laughing because it's a good team. But the process has been very honest, and we know where we are, which is important. So the audit was excellent. At planning committee, there was a clear understanding of the pressures, but more importantly, all the members wanted to work with you. So they understand the pressures. You understand that we have to challenge, and I think we've got a good relationship. I would just urge you to confirm with the company what the issues are, and Emlyn and senior officers have to push the company to deliver what's required quickly, because it's nearly 2 years. But overall, I think the process has worked, and the relationship's important between officers and members. So yeah, I can say, Nigel, we've got a good working relationship, and communication with residents and developers is the key, as we've mentioned, moving forward. So thank you.
Nigel?
Yeah, final comment through you, Chair. I mean, that's good to hear, and there's been a lot of positive exchange this morning on this matter. I think we are being protected slightly at the moment as an authority as the government pushes back the requirement to publicise certain performance indicators. Clearly, time is of the essence on the development of these changes, because if the first round of publicised information shows us in a very poor light, this will come back and picking up Bobby's comment earlier about reputational damage and impact, and we just need to be mindful of that. We recognise we've got an issue here that needs sorting. If there's anything that any committee or authority or the GAC in particular needs to do to enable that improvement to speed up or become more effective, then that needs to be flagged back from officers to members at the earliest opportunity. And we may need to revisit some of the budget decisions, for example, about reducing staffing in an area if we know that's having direct impact in relation to the delivery of service and or reputational damage of the council. I think that needs to be borne in mind when we have those difficult discussions across the council. But overall, I'm encouraged by the responses and onwards and upwards, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigel. Yeah, I'd agree there. Bob, just a question for yourself there. This is a process review rather than a fully fledged audit, as it were. Will there be a follow-up?
Yes, we would be looking at doing some type of follow-up, whether we do a normal follow-up review or whether we go in and just do a service review 12 months down the line to see how the service is now performing. That's something Paul and I will probably discuss.
Which will be, I would say when, but I mean,
I would be doing it next year, 26, 27 at the earliest, because I think this review's only just been completed in August. There's quite a few areas have been identified. Yeah. We've agreed some timelines with them as to when they'll address these issues, so it's no good me going back too early. I need them to have address the issues, and then I can go back and hopefully give you the green light that everything's working.
Okay, thank you. Bobby Feely?
Just a very quick one, Chair, which I heard Paul say it and I let it go, and then Nigel's just brought it up again. I think I heard you say, Paul, that we lost a member of staff to the retirement scheme, which was brought in by the CEO to help with the savings we needed. But we only brought those in order to, if someone could wanted to retire and didn't need to be replaced. So did I hear you say you let someone go under this scheme and now you realise that you actually needed him after all, or her?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Bobby. No, not in relation to the development management process, the subject of today's meeting. You might be talking about an officer within the local development plan team, but no, the officers that left our team in development management left to go to the private sector.
Okay, all right, I misunderstood.
Yeah. Thank you, Bobby.
Okay, thank you. Just to wrap up this, because I know we're part way through this internal audit update report. We've got other questions of that. Yeah, I'm just mindful of the time, but just also mindful of what my late colleague Nigel Wood said earlier on about we're not here to bayonet the wounded, and we see some wounded people here, I think, today. So I think it's obvious, but I think, as I see it, I mean, services are going to suffer in terms of staff structure at the moment. That's the age in which we live. I think you've had a double whammy here, and that you with the system on top of that, which is exacerbated things there. It seems to me, I think most members of the committee would, I think I'm summing up here, that I think most members would agree that you are doing everything you can to try to redeem the situation now. And I think that's the internal audit view as well there. And there'll be a follow-up review next year, hopefully to confirm that. I think the other thing that needs to be said, though, is that I think there's a few lessons that need to be learned here. I do concur with some of the things that Bobby Feely made before, some of the views there. That I'm not saying this is the case, but I think it raises questions for me concerning project management, the way that the council does project management, and possibly the way that we do procurement as well. Are there lessons to be learned? I'm not saying those things are wrong there, but I think there might well be lessons for the council when it comes to other systems. And with the transformation programme, there are going to be other systems. We are going to have to procure other IT systems as well. And I'd just ask that, I think we want some assurance that any lessons there are being taken on board. One of the ways we're going to do that is this workshop, which I've mentioned several times already today, that we're going to have once the project management audit is done. And I think certainly what's happened today, I think when we have that workshop, I think we'll be taking account of what we've talked about today. So unless there are any other points on this, I just thank you, Councillor James, and the officers who've been here today, and thank you, Councillor James.
Can I just make a comment, if I may, Chair? One of the things I do need to say, and I think it's, from my point of view as lead member, it's a privilege to work with the planning and in the area that I cover, my portfolio. They work extremely hard. They're very open, very honest, as you've heard today. I want to thank Bob as well very much for the way that this has all been handled. It has been an extremely difficult and is an extremely difficult time. I spend an awful lot of time with the staff, with heads of service. We have regular one-to-ones. We look at the issues and try and work them through. So it isn't about nobody is doing nothing. Everybody is working extremely hard. I used to be very dark-haired at one time. Obviously, you can tell how it's changed completely. Yes, but it's an ongoing process. And we're determined to get back. I was on the previous planning, I don't know how many years ago. We've never experienced, I think, in planning anything like this. Certainly I was chair and vice chair at one time of the planning committee. So it is where we are now. It's part of the times we are in. I did look across at our finance officer when I think Nigel said perhaps we would put a bit more resources in. That would be lovely. Yeah, we'd all welcome that. That would be a panacea for all our ails, I think, in all the departments. but that isn't going to happen, is it? That's an ideal world at this moment. So we recognise that. So I just needed to make those comments really, and to thank all my staff for the way that they are working with me and allowing me to work with them. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Noted. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, officers. Members, if we can go on to the rest of the internal audit update report, and then I intend, after we finish that, before we have the next item, I do intend to have a very short comfort break. So you know where we're going there. The other aspects of the internal update report, are there any questions there from members? Do the internal audit resources, completing the plan. Ellie Chard?
Yeah, I have this one. I thought I'd ask it. It's page 58. Yeah, page 58. And it's about the purchasing cards. And basically, I was just dismayed to read that not all of the purchases have been supported with receipts. Is this because we're now purchasing online and people are not taking photographs or taking copies of their purchases? Just a question. Thank you.
I'd have to get back to you on that one, Ellie.
Yeah.
It's a while since that review was done, and I'd have to go through the paperwork. But I'll get an email circulate to you all on that question. Thank you.
Thank you. Because all I can say is, in the 25 years in the Skolmire, I used to always ask. The teachers couldn't get any money off me without a receipt. So, but I mean, I know this is different times. So, thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Ellie. Mark Young?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Bob. Just so you've touched on capacity, and it feels like you believe you can provide a reliable annual opinion with the resources, although it's challenging. So can I just ask just two questions? So what progress has been made following Audit Wales comments on governance, culture and project management lessons learned? And also, finally, are there any audits where these significant risks or weaknesses that should be identified with the committee or we should be made aware of?
The first question around governance arrangements first, looking at those, and obviously over the next 6 months, I'm looking at new global internal audit standards that form part of all that. So that is a piece of work that Principal Auditor and myself will be doing. I have to get everything in by the 31st of March 2026 for the global internal audit standards in the UK public sector. So we need to be fully compliant by then. So that's where we're up to on that one. We're constantly looking at audit risks. It's an area that heads of service managers know that they can pick up the phone and call me at any point if they have a concern or an issue, and we will support them at that point. So all I can say on audit risks, it's an ongoing piece of work that, I suppose, famous words, how long's a piece of string? Because that's the role we play here.
I suppose the question, I know there's a commitment, but I ask it, you'll make members aware if needed, if they're significant.
Yeah, if significant risk came up tomorrow, then obviously first I would be having conversations with the corporate director of business, Gary, and my manager, Liz, and then obviously we'd be sharing them with yourselves at the appropriate time.
Okay, Giacomo, thank you.
Thank you. Just before Bobby Feely comes in, I see Sonia, one of your colleagues, Sonia Foxburn's got a hand up there. Sorry, Sonia, I missed it. From the screen here, there's a banner across the top of the screen, and I can't easily see the hands raised there. So forgive me if I missed you.
Thank you. I just wanted to respond to Councillor Chard because I did the purchasing card review. So I just thought I'd quickly address it. It was only 4% of transactions. It was minuscule on the grand scheme of things, and they weren't. Fortunately, they weren't significant transactions. I think preemptively, it was the crossover from Proactis to the T1 system. People weren't keeping hold of receipts, or they were sort of getting lost in in the system, so to speak. But we did raise it as an issue regardless, because it was. But on the grand scheme of things, it wasn't a critical issue at all. And I think going forward, there's new sort of processes in place for the authorisation process, where the authoriser won't authorise unless there's a receipt attached to the. So going forward, it looks like they've already preemptively fixed that issue, but we did raise it as an issue regardless, because we couldn't ignore the evidence in front of us. But it was, I think, 780 something transactions were tested.
783.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So it was quite minor. I think something like 30, but they were very small, you know, like parking tickets, things like that. It was very insignificant, the figure, but we rightfully raised it as an issue anyway. So going forward, the authoriser knows. I think it's all been sort of put in place now. The authoriser won't authorise without the receipt, or without a good explanation of why there's no receipt. So
yeah, thank you, Sonia.
Thank
and
you.
I can imagine. I'm glad it's being checked,
yeah,
and authorised before, because that's the bit I knew.
I will say the T1 system is fantastic for the authorisation process. Some people don't like it, but there's clear separation of duty in the T1 system. So if I raise an invoice, if I raise a purchase order or an expense, I can't authorise my own. It goes through quite a good process. So I will say, yeah.
Thank you for your response.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thanks, Sonia.
Thank you.
Thanks for raising it, Ellie, and thanks, Sonia, for the response. Bobby Feely? You've got your sound turned off, Bobby. Sorry.
Sorry, somebody must have turned me off, quite rightly. Yes, I am concerned about internal audit, and I'm glad that you have caught up quite a bit, and I am aware of the pressures that you're under, and how important internal audit is to the whole council, and we couldn't do without them. But you outline yourself, there is several complicated whistleblowing incidences going on, and you also outline the sickness absence problem and the important vacancy that has been unfilled for a very long time. Well, I think it's nearly a year, isn't it? And I just wondered how far along the line you are with addressing all those issues to try and get you back on track, fully on track.
Right. With the first issue around whistleblowing, obviously every time a whistleblowing allegation comes into the council, Gary and myself have sight of the whistleblowing allegation. We tend to then bring in the service, the head of service or the service managers. We discuss how best to tackle it. We don't always internally tackle it. It might go out to a private investigator. Sometimes we will agree the service is best placed to tackle the investigation, or thirdly, the option is internal audit carries out the piece of work, because obviously there are costs involved when it goes out to a private investigator. So we weigh every whistleblowing complaint up as it comes in and then make a decision. So that's the whistleblowing. Sickness, absence, yes, I've had a lot of sickness in the team over the last 2 years, but I'm hoping now, you know, I'm very supportive when the individuals have come in with the sickness. We've addressed it. HR have been absolutely fantastic. They've supported me. Occupational health, where required, have come in and given us really good advice and support. So I'm hoping the team have been supported well by myself, HR, occupational health. And as I say, we've got full quota of staff back in place at the moment, and fingers crossed We have several months now where we don't have any sickness, but I can't say for sure that's going to happen because of my crystal ball sitting next to me is broken. Finally, vacancies. Liz and I have been discussing the vacancies for the last 12 months. We are a small team. At the moment, have 4 members of staff who are studying. We have gone out in the past and we haven't had the right calibre of staff come in. So this year we've taken the decision, Liz and I, that, as I said in my opening speech, there's money in the budget that I can buy additional services in if required to fulfil the plan this year. And I think going forward, that's the best solution Liz and I have come up with. I'm happy for Liz to say anything else.
Yeah, sorry, I've been sitting here some points this morning just a bit concerned about some of the conversations that we have. It's a very small team. We're talking about qualifications, capacity, sickness of individuals. I think we really need to be careful about how we have this discussion, because it is a discussion that we keep having a lot of the time, and I appreciate the committee, you know, it has an impact on the work of the committee, but we are talking about a sort of small group of individuals, and so from a you know, a health and well-being and a responsibility to that team, I am feeling a little bit uncomfortable. So perhaps, Chair, we might need to take some of these discussions offline, I think, and think about how best we manage these kinds of conversations going forward to protect the team, but also to be able to help the committee to do their work as well. Just make sure we're getting the right balance there. Bob and I have regular discussions. You know, you've just heard from Paul and Emlyn there about the impact of the need to make budgetary savings on the ability to deliver across the council. You know, I was debating whether I came in on the planning discussion or not. I decided not to, but what I would have said at that point, and this is what I would say here, we're all under pressure to make savings in order to set a balanced budget, and you cannot take £14 million out of the budget over a 2-year period without having an impact. And, you know, these are some of the impacts that you were seeing. And I know the Governance and Audit Committee is keen to see what the impact that is on governance. And, you know, we are holding a vacant position. It isn't just about savings, though. It is about the ability to recruit and retain. And in this team in particular, we had real difficulty and continue to have difficulty in recruiting professionally qualified staff in the same way as planning does. I think we do in terms of auditors. And if you speak to anybody trying to recruit auditors, you know, they will go to the private sector where salaries are higher. So it isn't just about budgetary savings, about that, and also the mix of skill within the team to be able to do the work. So the discussion that Bob and I have had at this point in time is that possibly we would look to bring that in through an alternative method in order to get through some of the work that we do, but that would help support the team to bring the right skill mix in.
Through purchasing.
Yeah.
Can I just come back briefly on that, Liz? And I understand what you're saying, but I have not ever and would not ever bring anything up that wasn't before me in a report.
Sorry, Bobby, the comment isn't veiled at any individual. It's about the general discussions that, you know, it's the way that Bob was introducing it this morning. It's about the way it's written in the report. It's around a number of conversations that we've had at this committee that so it wasn't per se about your comments, Bobby. It was about more general points that I was making there. Sorry. Thank you.
Internal audit team is a very small team. It's probably, as I understand it, it's comparable with other local authorities in Wales in terms of size, give or take a little bit. And, you know, obviously, in a small team, one person going off sick or one person, that has a big effect, a bigger effect than if you had a team of 20, obviously. But yeah, I think the work I think the work of internal audit is very much valued by this committee. And as we said before, as I've said frequently, you are part of our ears and eyes as to what's going on in the authority. And we're really keen that, I think we asked questions about the planned work. I mean, one of my questions was going to be, last year you had to rejig your plan partway through the year to achieve, to reprioritise it. Bob, is that likely to, do you think that's going to happen this year? I know it's a bit early, it's only September, and as you rightly said before, you know, as from what I understand, internal audit exercises are not like regular size products that you produce. Each one is different, it takes longer, you're looking at different things, there's different people involved. And as you rightly said, you've achieved, I think you said 8 audits, but there's some more in the pipeline. But also there's a lot more where the audits of the planning process has started. The audits are in effect started, so but they don't necessarily come out in regular size blocked or at regular intervals. But do you think that you're going to maybe have to rejig the plan again this year, or what's your view at the moment?
At the moment, I'm confident with a fair wind. By Christmas, by January, I'll be saying to you, 4 of the tables are completed, and the last 2 tables we're making good headway on. The groundwork's been done. I mean, table 2 around all the financial work, we've spent some time in the background. They're all scoped. We're looking at new ways of doing those reviews. So over the next 2 years, we're concentrating how we do those reviews. We're looking at doing 5 this year's process reviews so that we've got a process mapped out, and then the following year when we do those reviews we won't have to ask the same questions. What's the process? How do you do this? How do you do that? We'll just be sending a process review out and saying what's changed since last year, or this has changed, that's changed. We can then look at our tests and say we can emphasize now going into these areas that have changed. So that's one area that we've spent some time in the background in the summer doing, and I think that will bear fruit in the next 2 years because those reviews are going to speed up. We've done the same with school reviews. So with school reviews now, we've got standard working papers in place, and we go out, we hit a school 5-7 days, the report's done and dusted out to the school. So we are becoming more efficient as a team, and having looked at what we've done this summer, I am confident at the moment with a good wind, we will get to January, and I might be saying to Liz, I need to buy in a couple audits, or I might be saying to Liz, no, I'm pretty confident at this moment in time, we don't need to buy in. So it's one of those, as far as I'm aware, I'm happy.
Okay. I think, obviously, I mean, we raised questions about internal audit resources. I think that's our job too. I think, you know, so I noticed what you say about the post not being filled, but subject, as you just described it, you might purchase some service in. Has the team got experience of purchasing services in? I mean, I know there's risks involved, but there's clearly risks involved in trying to recruit as well. But
my colleague in Wrexham has done a North Wales procurement, so there is a framework in place that we can use.
Okay, thank you. Nigel Rudd?
Thank you, Chair. I was going to pick up, if I could, the Homeless Prevention Service report for a couple of reasons. I thought there was some really good stuff in here in terms of the achievements on site, getting down from 220 bed and breakfast to 120 and increased use of private sector leasing. There is a criticism that is levelled at local authorities from time to time, which is they very much focus on the public sector and they do pay insufficient attention to the private sector. And homelessness is one of those where it can happen. And much of this report was about homelessness and what you do when somebody is homeless. Not an awful lot of the report was on the prevention side, which is the step before that happens. So the questions I had were around, again, capacity of the organisation in terms of are we in benchmarking terms as well staffed as other authorities in Wales on this area? And in addition, what is the competency level that we have in terms of particularly Chartered Institute of Housing and or Certificate of Mortgage Advice and Protection? And I did give, again, a heads up on on these questions before committee. And the reason I've raised those, I would value some information back on that, is to look at how well we actually connect with external providers if we haven't and don't retain those skills in-house within our own direct services, because that is one element of this report that is referred to. So that's my first sort of question in terms of the capacity and how we deal with a competence shortage if we don't have that competence in-house. Chair, I have a second question I'll come back to. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nigel. Right then, the team's made up of about 50 employees across all the different areas of the service. So that's the capacity. Haven't got any benchmarking with other local authorities, but that's something I can ask the service to provide me and email you all afterwards. As for qualified staff, as you rightly say, Nigel, Chartered Institute of Housing and Certificate of Mortgage Advice and Protection, we don't have any in the service at the moment, but there's not a requirement to have these qualified members of staff in those teams, so that's why they don't sit there. When you also mention third party working with external organisations, Denbighshire has Citizens Advice Denbighshire that we work very closely with. So Citizens Advice Denbighshire can support people in some of these areas, and obviously they would be signposted to Citizens Advice Denbighshire in that case.
Nigel?
Yeah, through you, Chair. I think there is an issue about level of competency in terms of qualifications that are relevant to specific areas of work, in the same way as we've discussed about other services across the council. And to have no qualifications in this area seems to me to pose some questions about effectiveness or why you have those qualifications in the first place. So I'd value, and not necessarily in this meeting, but how and whether investing in qualifications in this area might help the service build on its already quite successful trajectory going forward. And I say that because my second question is basically how many homeless cases arose in the last 2 financial years, either as a result of eviction or repossession in the private sector landlord perspective, i.e. rental defaults, or secondly, from a lender recovery of mortgage default and repossession in terms of the council's area. I don't know if you've got those figures handy, Bob, or any other officer there, because those are partly what's behind my question on the first case about qualification and capacity. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Nigel. No, I did ask the service yesterday. This was outside the scope of our particular review, so that's why we've not had to put any time into getting these figures. It's something the service can provide you, but it's not going to be an overnight solution. So again, I will put it to the service that you'd like the figures. Once I've got the figures, I'll circulate them around this committee.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
No more questions from members? Nigel, you still got your hand raised? No, you still got your hand raised. Yeah. No.
Sorry,
Sonia,
Dave, can I just come in there?
Yes.
Whilst Bob's already highlighted that wasn't in the scope, I would like to take the opportunity to say that under the rapid rehousing model that we've taken on for the homeless service, they do look for a varied skill set. So some of the housing officers, for example, have counselling qualifications so that they can proactively get in there with families and counsel families so that there's no family breakdown, which prevents the homelessness. So there is lots of proactive work, and there is a really good skill set within the team. They do lots of training with Laura Patterson, I think it's called. So legal training is carried out with an external consultant. They do lots of other training with shelter and universal credit as well. So I just thought I'd come in there and mention that because.
Okay. Thank you, Sonia. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we'll, bearing in mind we've got several other reports still to deal with today, just to a couple of points, Bob, from myself, and perhaps you could come back to me, not in this meeting, but perhaps I'm just raised them so that from transparency they're raised. The audit of Rusland Town Council. I don't want to discuss that particular audit itself, but there's a general point about town council audits, and bearing in mind there's been something in the press recently about one of the other town councils that you're auditing. It was just really, what I'd like to know is, can we accept, as a council, can we, I know town councils or community councils can approach us as a principal authority to carry out an internal audit. So the guidelines for community council says that specifically. But does that request have to come specifically from the council formally, or can we respond just to an individual member of that council coming to us? You don't necessarily, I don't want to get into a discussion of that now, but perhaps you could come back to me that, and if I can raise it at the next internal update if need be. The other thing is, briefly, you mentioned the NFI exercise there in page 26 of your report, saying there's been just over £48,000 overpayments. How much of that is error? How much of that was fraud? And if, as far as the fraud is concerned, what action is being taken there? So
come back to you on that one.
Perhaps you could
£650 and 6p was fraud, and it's been referred to the DWP and our revs and bends.
How much, sorry?
£650
Right.
and 6p.
But the rest is, the bulk of that is
Error. The rest, the £47,970, 93p, error to include changes of circumstance, overpayment, not notifying revs and bends, or reassessments.
Okay. Thank you. Right. As far as the internal update is concerned, I don't see any other hands up there. So the recommendations are that the committee considers the report content, assesses internal audit progress and performance, and that we decide whether it needs further assurance that any of the audited areas to follow up progress with implementing the improvement actions. I'm not sure what the resolution will be there. Presumably the committee considers the content of the report, and do we need further assurance on any of those areas, or yeah, just looking for some guidance there. The resolution.
Chair, should we get further assurance on planning, on the planning matter?
Well, we're going to get. There's going to be a follow-up review to that, isn't there? So
Okay.
I don't think there's any other specific assurances that we want. So
No, I don't think so. And as it's indicated, you will get a follow-up on the planning. On the planning.
And we're going to have that project management workshop as well, yes, where we can discuss some things there. So I think the resolution would be that the committee consider the content of the report did not need any further assurances. So can I have a proposal for that, please? Mark, seconder, Carol, all in favour? Thank you very much. Right, I'm aware of the time. It's now, my computer's gone off. It's 12 o'clock. Can we have a 5-minute break, please? And then we'll be back at 6 minutes past 12 to begin on the capital budget process. It has gone very cold, hasn't it? Yes.
Well, that's the meeting in there.
Are we online? Yeah, for those of you at home, I hope it's warmer in your homes than it is in this council chamber. It is freezing in here. But anyhow, thank you for the break there. Right, we'll resume with our meeting. Item 7, the capital budget process. Welcome again to Councillor Jones and to Liz Thomas, Head of Finance and Audit. The purpose is to look at the council's process for setting its annual capital budget and the role of the Government Audit Committee in that process. Councillor Jones, thank you.
Thank you. Diolch yn fawr. Yeah, I'm just waiting, just making sure everybody are ready for me to speak in Welsh, that's all. Yeah, okay, there we are. Right, mae'r papur yma yn ymwneud â prosesau'r cyngor, so it's about the processes, ar gyfer gosod ei gyllideb gyfalaf flynyddol ar ôl y Pwyllgor Llywodraethu ac Archwilio o fewn y broses honno. Mae Llywodraeth Cymru wedi cynhyrchu canllawiau statudol sy'n amlinellu rôl y Pwyllgor Llywodraethu ac Archwilio wrth adolygu a chael sicrwydd bod gan y cyngor brosesau a rheolaethau effeithiol a chadarn ar waith mewn perthynas â materion ariannol y cyngor. Y ffyrdd y gosodwyd cyllidebau, y ffyrdd y monitrwyd gwariant ac ati. Pwyllgor craffu'r cyngor sy'n gyfrifol am graffu ar benderfyniadau gwariant. Felly mae'r adroddiad yma'n amlinellu'r prosesau ar gyfer gosod y gyllideb gyfalaf i ei hadolygu. Mae'n amlinellu'r gwahanol reolaethau sydd ar waith, gan gynnwys rolau a chyfrifoldebau ariannol y cyngor llawn, y cabinet, pennaeth cyllid y Archwilio a phrif swyddogion eraill wrth ddatblygu a monitro'r cynllun cyfalaf. Mae hefyd yn disgrifio rôl y grŵp craffu cyfalaf wrth adolygu prosiectau cyfalaf cyn eu cymeradwyo gan y cabinet neu'r cyngor. Yn y gorffennol, mae aelodau'r Pwyllgor wedi gwneud sylwadau ar y cysylltiad rhwng y cynllun cyfalaf a threfn rheoli'r trysorlus, gan bod unrhyw ofynion benthyca yn deillio o benderfyniadau rheoli cyfalaf. A felly gobeithio bydd y papur yma yn darparu eglurder ynghylch y cysylltiadau rhwng y prosesau hyn. Na i ddod o Liz i mewn munud i roi mwy o fanylion i chi am y prosesau hyn. Ond cyn i mi wneud hynny, mi hoffwn ni hefyd yn eich sylw at ddau beth. Yn gyntaf, bod y tîm cyllid gyda CET a'r SLT dros yr haf wedi dechrau datblygu strategaeth gyfalaf tymor gahnolig a gweledigaeth gyfalaf, fel sydd wedi cael ei trafod. Bydd yn cynorthwyo gyda blaenoriaethu cynlluniau cyfalaf yn y dyfodol ac wrth ddenu cyllid allanol. Mae'r gwaith yna wedi cael ei ohirio rhywfaint oherwydd y pwysau ariannol sylweddol mae'r cyngor wedi wnebu'n ddiweddar a problemau capacity sydd wedi bodoli o fewn y tîm cyllid. Ond mae hyn ar waith yn sylweddol erbyn hyn. Bydd y strategaeth gyfalaf a'r gweledigaeth gyfalaf yn cynnwys adolygiad o pa fath o gynlluniau ddylai gyflwyno cynigion achosion busnes llawn i'r Pwyllgor craffu cyfalaf i'w ystyried gyda'r bwriad o symwleiddio prosesau lleihau biwrocratiaeth a gall hyn arwain at rai mân newidiadau i'r broses amlinellir yn atodiad 1. Os bydd y newidiadau hyn yn fwy helaeth, mi ddown ni adroddiad ychwanegol yn ôl at y Pwyllgor i'w gyflwyno. A hefyd yn ail, mewn ymateb i geisiadau blaenorol gan aelodau am farn i gael ei rannu, gan cynghorwyr rheoli trysorlus y cyngor, Alun Close. O ystyried cymhlethdod y cynllun cyfalaf a'r benthyca cysylltiedig sy'n cynnwys cronfa cyngor cyfri refeniw tai yn ogystal â rhai prosiectau mawr eraill fel cynllun amddiffyn rhag llifogydd, byddai'n anodd neilltuo amser digonol mewn cyfarfod Pwyllgor arferol i hyn. Felly mae Alun Close wedi cytuno i ymdrin ar pwnc yma yn y sesiwn y fforddi nesaf i aelodau sydd wedi drefnu ar gyfer mis Rhagfyr eleni. Felly na i ofyn i Liz ddod i mewn rwan i roi mwy o fanylion i chi ac i helpu gyda unrhyw gwestiynau.
Thank you.
Diolch Delyth. Not wanting to repeat what the lead member has said, so just pick out some of the points that I wanted to make. At the outset, I just want, we are calling two different things a capital strategy at some point. So just want to explain what each of those are. So there is a document called a capital strategy in Appendix 2, which unhelpfully has Appendix 5 written on it because that was its appendix name when it went somewhere else. So that is the capital strategy. That is a specific document we must produce that is set out by SIPFA. So that is called a capital strategy. That's one of the capital strategies. And then we talk about a medium-term capital strategy. I'm going to start calling that a capital vision to avoid confusion. So we're going to start calling that a capital vision. And that is the work that the committee has been asking through its work on treasury management. Where are we up to on that capital visioning work? So just wanted to make that point in case people get confused, which it would be easy to do so. I think the report is threefold. So the role of the Governance and Audit Committee here is around reviewing the robustness of our processes and the governance around how we set a capital plan. So that's the point of bringing this report, and some of that detail is in Appendix 1. The second point then I wanted to make was around is a proposal to the committee, because we have been discussing the links between capital and treasury management for some time. And I said I wanted to go away and I wanted to have a think about it. And so this is my proposal as to how we do that moving forward in future for consideration by the committee. So the Capital Scrutiny Group in its November-December meeting will start to pull what the capital plan for the starting the 3 years after in its meeting in December. That will then form a capital plan and a capital strategy that will go to full council at the end of January. That meeting also will include the Treasury Management strategy for the year. So my proposal is that the Governance and Audit Committee, normally about a week before, considers its Treasury Management strategy. So therefore, it would be reasonable for us to append what the capital plan is looking like and what that capital strategy is in one agenda item for your January meeting. So you have the context around what's going to be in the capital plan and how that links through to the Treasury Management document. And then you've got the capital strategy, which ties those two things together in one place for your consideration. So that would be my proposal there. For your information, I've put the capital strategy in Appendix 2. That's the one that was approved in January 2025. So you can see what it contains. Now, to be fair to all members of the committee, I think the elected members here will be familiar with that because they've seen it going through council. But to be fair to lay members, they probably haven't seen that before. So that's my reasoning in bringing that. And then finally, just to answer some questions that I know that will come up around the work that the proposal around how we deal with the question about the impact on the council's revenue budget of capital, and asking Alan Close for an opinion. The training is set for all members, not just members of the Governance and Audit Committee, and it's scheduled for the 12th of December. And it'd be my proposal that we can cover that. It's quite complicated. Covers HRA, covers bigger things like the coastal sea defences that we're getting money in on an annual basis from Welsh Government. These all things have an impact into how the amount of borrowing and the size of our capital plan looks, and I think that would be appropriate that we spend that amount of detail going through that because it is a source of question. So I think that's what all I wanted to cover. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Liz. Yeah, thanks for the report. I note your reminder about the GAC interest in this topic is about the processes, and as you rightly said, squaring that off with what the information we get as on the treasury management, etc. And indeed the other financial information that we get because of the revenue implications of capital expenditure. So, members, any questions or points from members? I think Liz has made two broad recommendations there about the capital plan and let me get it right, the capital strategy accompanying the annual Treasury Management Strategy report in January, which makes, to me, perfect sense there. But any other comments or observation from members? Nigel Rudd?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to lead member and Liz for this report. This report scores very highly on the Nigel Rudd assessment of the quality of reports. Got 5 ticks from me and a 10 out of 10 score, Liz. So well done on that. I just want to make a couple of points on this. That I think the relationship and the understanding of how capital decisions affect the council's treasury management position isn't just for the GAC; it's obviously for the wider council. And the understanding of that is important because I think it is a legitimate concern for GAC that, having regard to the Section 114 implications, that unwise capital programme commitment decisions, which are not sustainable through a treasury management position, are of concern to the GAC. Obviously, we don't expect ever for that to occur, but it is not just an information transfer position, there has to be an informed review within GAC about its ability to manage its treasury management position, and that is informed in part by the capital strategy decisions of the council. So I just raise that, Liz, back as a it is a legitimate role of the GAC to have regard to that. Now, outside of that, I welcome the report. Well done. I'm very happy with the recommendations and happy to move the report accordingly, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigel. Any other comments from members? Can I just, Mark?
Yeah, just a quick one, and all makes sense, and we want to add value as a committee. So do you have any thoughts on how we could add value on the process, this committee, just so we're all clear, because it's quite a detailed piece of report, and I guess we want to get better. So is there any thoughts on that, how we could add better value? Because obviously you're changing it so we do end up in a better place. So I'm guessing, I'm just trying to get out of yourself as the lead financial officer, how we could add value to the process as a committee. Is that because you're visualising a better way? If you can explain that, I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think by having all of those documents presented to GAC in January, you have a more holistic view, and you will have a view that then goes on to council. I think in my observation, in the 2 times that I've taken it through council, I think you sort of assess the room and it's like, oh, okay, there's a lot of information in here, and it's about building people's understanding. And I think the way the governance and audit committee adds value to that is its robustness and its thoroughness around the consideration. And I think that will add value to the council in knowing to 48 councillors in needing to approve those documents, that it's been through the rigour of the governance and audit committee. My thoughts.
Yeah, thanks for that. That's really helpful. So.
Thank you. Thank you. The only thing I'd add is from the proposal for the 2 reports to come with the treasury management, would they also include, bearing in mind you talk about the capital plan and the capital strategy and the capital vision, I should say the capital vision there. Any changes to the whole processes there, if there were to be any changes, or for some reason that something had been skipped for some reason, or something had been left out, or there'd been some variation, that would be reported to us, wouldn't it be? Bearing in mind that you say that we're principally about the process, and so if the process needs review in some areas, or it hasn't been applied, there's been some variation from it, that would be reported to us in those reports.
Yeah, and it can be something that we should they in making any changes. I think that's why the lead member said, we are reviewing the processes now. If anything comes out as a result of that, from your role in overviewing the process, if there's anything fundamental that come out, like the next agenda item,
yes.
We're going to suggest a
yes.
change, so therefore
yes.
we want to bring that through the governance and audit committee first. So yes, we would.
And that's happened with the capital scrutiny group when that was set up. I think before you started in 2022, I think your predecessor brought the report then to this committee. So it just gives us a chance to comment on that. Yeah. Okay. And the other thing I was just to say about Arling Close, the training, it is arranged, as you say, for the 12th of December. And I think the point I made in some email correspondence wasn't just, I think you've taken this up, it wasn't just that other members should be open to them, but should be actually encouraged to attend, which I think you've taken on. I was going to suggest, I think what you to say is fine. I think it'd be good also to include the prudential indicators in that. I mean, that could probably come about anyhow, but they do get reported to us, and it's sometimes getting our head round those, not what they are, but also what they mean, what they indicate, as it were. So, okay, thank you. I think the recommendation is the committee considers the report and feeds back any comments it has. I think the resolution should be specifically that words along the line that we accept the recommendations regarding the 2 reports that are attached to the appended to the Treasury Management Strategy when it comes in January. So I've got some wording on that, but shall I read it out now? I said that the committee has considered the report and that we that the proposed capital plan be attended to the Treasury Management agenda as context and included in the January GAC meeting, and also to bring the annual capital strategy to the GAC at its January meeting as part of the Treasury Management agenda item, which is lifting the words from Liz's report there. So we're happy with that. I've got some. I can give you the wording afterwards. I've written it down here. So if can I have a proposer for that, please? Mark Young. Seconder, Nigel Rudd. All in favour? Thank you. Okay. And thank you for the report there, both Councillor Jones and Liz. Thank you. Going swiftly on to the next item. Item 8, the proposed amendment to the budget framework rules. Councillor Jones. Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr. Mae'r adroddiad yma yn ymwneud â gwelliant arweithedig i reolau fframwaith polisi'r gyllideb ac mae'n ymwneud â rheolau gweithdrefn mewn perthynas â gosod cyllideb refeniw'r cyngor. Mae cyfansoddiad y cyngor yn darparu ar gyfer rheolau gweithdrefn cyffredinol yng nghyfarfodydd y cyngor gan gynnwys darpariaeth ar gyfer diwygiau argymhellion neu gynigion, a mae'r rheolau nodi y gall unrhyw aelod gynnig gwelliant os yw'n berthnasol i'r penderfyniad dan sylw ac nad yw'n gyda'r cynnig. Mae'r rheolau hyn yn seiliedig ar gyfansoddiad model a fabwysiadu gyda rhai amrywiadau lleol gan y Prif Gynghorau yng Nghymru. Mae'r cyfansoddiad hefyd yn cynnwys rheolau gweithdrefn cyllideb a fframwaith polisi sy'n nodi'r ffordd y mae'r gyllideb a rhai polisiau mawr yn cael eu mabwysiadu. Maen nhw'n disgrifio rôl y Cabinet wrth baratoi cynigion, rôl craffu wrth ystyried y cynigion a rôl y cyngor llawn fel y corff sy'n cymryd y penderfyniadau terfynol. Ar hyn y bryd, dydy'r rheolau ddim yn cynnwys darpariaeth ynghylch y broses o sut y gellir ystyried gwelliannau i'r gyllideb yn y cyngor llawn. Yng nghyfarfod y cyngor ar y 20 o Chwefror eleni pan oedd yr aelodau'n ystyried y cynigion cyllidebol terfynol, cynigwyd gwelliant nad oedd rhybudd ffurfiol amdano wedi rhoi yr aelodau o flaen llaw, ac arweiniodd hyn at ddadl hir, dilys, arweiniodd hefyd i gynnig gwelliant ar wahân pellach cael ei wneud. Rheolwyd y gwelliannau hyn yn ystod y cyfarfod y cyngor gyda un yn cael ei gymeradwyo a'r llall yn cael ei drechu, a gallai gwelliannau ar y diwrnod heb rybudd achosi anawsterau, gyda swyddogion statudol heb ddigon amser i asesu a yw'r gwelliannau'n gadarn, yn gyfreithiol ac yn ariannol bosib, a'r effaith ar lesiant heb gael ei asesu'n llawn. Yn ogystal, fel nodwyd gan sawl aelod ar y diwrnod, gall hefyd arwain at aelodau etholedig heb ddigon o amser i ddeall y cynnig ac i ddod i farn ystyriol ynghylch i'r unweddau. Mae rhai awdurdodau wedi gosod darpariaeth yn eu rheolau gweithdrefn cyllideb a fframwaith polisi i osod gyfyniad rhybudd ar gyfer unrhyw welliannau i'r gyllideb i'w cynnig yn y cyngor, a mi o fedrwch chi weld rhain yn atodiad 1. Mae pob cyngor wedi mabwysiadu amserlen chydig bach yn wahanol ar gyfer rheoli'r rhybudd, yn ymrywio o 2 i 3 diwrnod cymharol fyr, fel mae Sir Ddinbych yn ei ofyn ar gyfer i aelod ofyn cwestiwn ffurfiol, i gyfnod o rhybudd o 10 diwrnod, fel mae Sir Ddinbych yn ei ofyn ar gyfer cynigion. Ym mhob achos mae'r cynghorau'n mynnu dylai unrhyw welliannau arwain at gyllideb gytwys. Felly rhaid i'r cynigydd allu dangos sut y byddent yn cynnig cydbwysau incwm a gwariant i ddarparu ar gyfer ei gwelliant. Yn amlwg, pohiref yw'r cyfnod rhybudd, mwy amser fydd ei gen swyddogion i asesu dilysrwydd y gwelliant ac i aelodau ystyried a ddylen nhw gefnogi unrhyw welliant. Fodd bynnag mae gan gyfnod byr rhybudd hir gan lyniadau posib ar gyfer amseriad cyfarfodydd sydd yn ystod y blynyddoedd dwythaf wedi bod yn rhy dyn i roi 10 diwrnod o rybudd rhwng penderfyniad y Cabinet i argymell cyllideb a cyfarfod y cyngor llawn ei hun. Felly mae'r papur yma yn atodiad 2 yn cynnig paragraff drafft arfaethedig i gael ei fawnosod i reolau fframwaith y gyllideb y cyfansoddiad. Mae'n gosod gyfyniad i roi rhybudd o 3 diwrnod gwaith ymlaen llaw, i welliannau ddangos sut y bydd yn bosib cydbwys incwm o gwariant mwyn i'r gwelliant gael ei gynnwys ac i'r gwelliant gael ei gynigydd ac eilydd. Cyn i mi orffen, dwi'n credu bod hi'n bwysig nodi mae nod y newid yw cydbwyso hawliau democrataidd aelodau i gyflwyno gwelliannau cyllideb heb effeithio negyddol ar y gyfynion cyfreithiol i osod cyllideb gytbwys. Bod y cynnig eisoes wedi drafod mewn sesiwn friffio o'r cabinet mewn cyfarfodydd arweinwyr grwpiau ac mewn gweithdy cyllideb heb unrhyw wrthwynebiadau heb eu codi, a bod y cabinet a'r swyddogion wedi ymrwymo i ymgysylltu'n gadarnhaol a llawn o amgylch y broses o osod y cyllideb trwy gyfres y weithdau cyllideb a thrafodaethau grwpiau unigol. Mae Gary Williams yma a mae Liz gen i yma hefyd i helpu gyda unrhyw cwestiynau neu...
Thank you. Liz, do you want to mention?
Nothing further to add. Gary and I will take any questions between us. Thank you.
I mean, just a question for myself. I'm just aware of the time, so I'm going to lead off. But just one question. I mean, I've got no problem with it. It seems to be eminently sensible. It's just to give more consideration of any changes that are necessary, which is very much in the interest of what this committee stands for. Is that likely to be taken? Is there any question of it being perceived as any different by members that you're aware of?
Well, I'll take that. Not that I'm aware of. I have raised it briefly with group leaders just to give them a heads up that it was coming. It's been to cabinet briefing for a discussion as well, and it appears as though it would be supported. I think, to be fair, it comes out of requests from a number of different members across the council about how can we manage amendments better. And so the purpose of this is to provide some sort of structure effectively. It just means that whilst Liz and I have been able to manage amendments in the meeting, that's not always going to be the case, depending on the nature of it. So that carries some risk. And given that members will have been involved in the budget workshops all the way along, and that by the time the papers get to cabinet, everybody will understand what's in the budget, it seems it's appropriate that we ask for a bit of notice in respect of amendments to that budget.
Yeah. I see that the leader of the council, Jason McClellan's here, and he's got his hand up.
Yeah, I put my hand up. Sorry, I put my hand up. I think Gary has touched upon what I was going to say, in that that there did seem to be an appetite from the members for this, as reflected in the group leaders meetings that we had on it after the budget last year. As Gary said, you know, group leaders speak for their groups, and there was definitely an appetite for this process to be looked at, and this is the sort of outcome we were looking at. I think it's probably fair to say I discussed it with my predecessor, Hugh Evans, as well, who had a view. So yeah, I'm essentially endorsing what Gary said from a group leader's position. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. That's really useful. Mark Young.
Yeah, well, it's most probably my fault, some of this. So I wanted to get under the table, but saying that, as an elected member, you get passionate, don't you? So all this would mean, and I support it, I'd have a process. So I don't want to be in that position, and members don't, as last year. I hope everyone understands that I was trying to do the right thing, but clearly there was an issue, and this is better. So I fully support it. And sorry, Liz.
Benefit of Nigel, I understand what you're talking about. I think this relates to there was the full council meeting in February, which I happened to be there for some other purpose. But thank you. Listen, unless there's Bobby Feely.
Yes, I welcome this. I was going to actually ask Mark to cover his ears while I spoke, but he's fessed up, so I'll let him be. What we wanted to avoid was having had numerous budget shop meetings in the middle of a budget meeting to agree the budget, for some a member to bring an amendment about which we knew nothing. So I think this will, thank you, Gary, and I hope you forgive my pestering in addition to the group leaders meeting. I think this is an excellent idea, and it means the budget setting will be more realistic and sensible on the day.
I was just going to thank Bobby for that and to say that I didn't consider anything to be pestering, but constructive challenge and heartfelt support. So thank you.
I think the recommendation is that the recommendation is the committee considers the draft amendment to the budget policy framework rules set out in Appendix 2 and recommends its adoption by Council. Oh, sorry, Nigel, I didn't see you. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Gerald. I was just retitling this report, the Mark Young Amendment. Can I raise just 2 points on on the appendix, which is the timescale, and I have given Gary a heads up on this. The timescale for the budget setting process 26-27. 2 points on that. When you look at the timescale of cabinet meeting on the 10th of February, you'll have asked for any motions to be sent in by close of play on the 6th of February. How do you anticipate a member picking up a change which might result from the cabinet meeting of the 10th of February? And the second question is that it would be helpful to have an update on the recruitment of the chief executive, as the chief executive role is crucial if you look at the top of the page for handling the 3 working days, how any issue of this kind, which might be during a period of transition, just looking at the timescales for recruitment of chief executive, would be handled in that circumstance, please. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Nigel. Yes, the timescale is set out there, and I think part of the proposal is that every year we will, in very good time, tell everybody what the timescale is going to be for the different meetings. I think it's important to state that there will be a very inclusive process towards the preparation of the budget prior to its consideration by Cabinet. So Liz will be running a number of budget workshops. There will be, as well, I'm sure if political groups want them, there'll be visits by the Chief Exec and the Section 151 officer to discuss issues with political groups. By the time it gets to Cabinet and is published on the 4th of February, those proposals should be fairly well settled, and they should be proposals that members, whether they agree with them or not, members will be clear on what those proposals are going to be by the time it gets there. The point Nigel makes is if Cabinet, for some reason, on the 10th of February, decided to depart from those settled proposals and to change, as my understanding of Nigel's question, to change in effect what the budget was, that would mean that we had already asked people in effect to have given us notice of any amendment before that change had been made. My role as monitoring officer would be to ensure that the council deals in a proper and lawful way with the way in which it makes its decisions. All of our procedure rules are subject to the discretion of the chair. I would expect that if Cabinet had, if papers had gone to Cabinet, they'd been published on the 4th of February, and then on the 10th of February, Cabinet had basically changed something significant in the budget, and a member perhaps was going to say, well, I'd like to move an amendment that it get changed back or a different amendment, then I would expect the chair to exercise discretion in that on that basis. And actually the advice I would give the chair of the meeting would be, if there's been a fundamental change in what was being proposed, then that's not fair to people who may want to move an amendment. I think that's highly unlikely to happen because of the process that we have in place. So by the time we get to Cabinet, everybody will understand what those proposals are. So I think it's a very low risk, but that's the answer. There would be discretion to deal with the unexpected. In terms of the Chief Exec recruitment, Council will meet on the 24th of October to interview applicants and to reach a decision. On the basis of the rules being written by reference to the Chief Executive, if for any reason there was a gap where we didn't have a Chief Executive in place, then we would have arrangements in place whereby, in the inability of the chief executive to act, then myself or another of the corporate directors or Liz would be able to deal with it. It would usually come to the monitoring officer in those circumstances, so I'd be the person who deal with it.
Thank you. Okay, Nigel. Mark, did you want to come in?
Yeah, just very quickly. So take it all on board, Bobby. You've got broad shoulders. It's fine. The point is, I can still do it, but there's a proper framework and it's clear. And you've just confirmed that there's flexibility. If Cabinet did do something outrageous, there's flexibility still within that meeting to challenge it, which is really important.
Yes. Jason?
Yeah, I just wanted to come back on Nigel's point on the timing, because it's a really good question. It's an interesting question, because I think the bigger picture is the processes outside of the council around the Welsh Government's decision-making processes, and the setting of the budget do give us quite a short timescale in terms of the indicative budget, the final budget, and we're always in a tight timescale. But I think so that for that reason, Nigel, I think it's a good question, right question. But I think even within those timescales, I'm content that this process does allow the challenge, and you know, I fully take on board what Mark says, that he can still propose an amendment as he did last year, and last year was last year. We won't dwell on it, but there's a process to go through. But it is always tight because of external factors as well. And let's be honest, the politics in Cardiff at the moment, you know, there may be some other complexities around timing as well. So let's not ignore that fact. So yeah, thanks, Nigel. Good question. Good point.
Thank you. Carol Holiday.
Thank you, Chair. Is this just for budgetary, or is this going to be sort of like something that could be implemented for other amendments? And I'll just make it consistent that we know.
No, just for the budget, I think it would probably be a bit OTT to apply it to all papers in front of the council. So what the rules say is that if there's a recommendation or a motion in front of council, then any member can move without notice an amendment to it to either remove words or add words, provided they don't negate the motion. Because if you want to negate it, just vote against it. So that would stand. This is just about the budget. And the reason for it is that it wasn't a problem last time, but it could have been. That Liz would have to assess whether or not a proposal made on the day was actually financially prudent and that she could endorse it. And I would have to make a decision as to whether or not it was legal and it was something that the council was able to do. We've managed in the past, but I think the feeling that lots of members had it would be better that we were able to assess that given a few days. It also means that elected members who might support an amendment, if they'd had a chance to think about it or to discuss it amongst themselves, may not feel able to do it if they don't have that time to consider it. So I think it just gives a more considered way of dealing with amendments. Doesn't take away the right to do it. It's just making sure we've got a process.
Okay. Bobby Feely.
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly, I agree with challenge. You know, nobody likes challenging more than I do. So I have no problem with challenge and small amendments, you know, relatively speaking, not too much problem. But we were talking about 500,000 out of reserves and 500,000 a year ongoing. That's not a challenge and that's not a small amendment. That was something that did need a lot of challenge. I don't want to pursue it. We've said what we've said, and we've now got a new process, which I'm very pleased about. So, thank you, Chair.
Okay, point taken. Thank you, Bobby. Unless there are any other questions or observations, I think we need to pass a resolution, and my suggested wording is this: that the committee recommends adoption by council of the amendments to the budget and policy framework rules as set out in Appendix 2 of this report. Can I have a proposer for that, please? Carol Holiday, a seconder, Ellie Chard. All in favour? Thank you. Thank you very much for the report, and thank you for that. Next item, item 9, the draft local code of corporate governance, which is pages 117 to 142 in your pack. I can welcome the leader of the council, Councillor Jason McLennan, here to this meeting. Thank you, and Gary, who's done the work on it as well. So I think, Jason, are you going to give a brief?
Yeah, I will give a
Sorry,
brief
that's all.
introduction.
That's all you want. Sorry.
No. I'll give a succinct introduction and hand over to Gary. Yeah. So the document before you today is a really important document for Denbighshire. Denbighshire is a large organisation. There's things that we have to do, our statutory responsibilities, and there are policies that we implement. But we have to discharge those responsibilities, both statutory and non-statutory, for the benefits of our residents. And to do that, we need very good governance structures. We have to act in the law, we have to have the highest standards, we have to be accountable to the public, and we have to spend public money efficiently. There's often in reports around governance and audit, they're obviously and rightly so kind of jargon heavy, but I think the phrases that cut through in this report are that we have to do the right things for the right people in the right way. That's a simple way of saying in layperson's terms, good governance. Our governance structures were looked at our peer panel review last year, and I think that panel review's in the paper as well. The report refers to our core principles, and it refers to the Nolan principles, which guide our conduct and how we govern as a council as well. So obviously, the terms of the reference of this committee, it's right that the draft code of conduct governance comes to this committee. So I'll now hand over to Gary.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Leader. Yes, I think the Leader's made the main points. It was just to say that, first of all, apologies for the ever so slight delay in producing this report. The report is based around, the code is based around the 7 principles set out in the SIPFA and Solace guidance. What we've tried to do is to effectively, by each principle, set out what we consider to be the assurance controls that we have in the council. And what we've also done is we've appended at the end the Nolan principles and the council's own values and principles, because clearly you can have as many controls as you like, you can have as many documents as you like, but what's really important is that the culture of the organisation is such that people want to do the right things for the right people in the right way. So I make no apology for attaching the council's principles as well as the Nolan principles, because the Chief Executive, from the day he came into office, has been very keen that we adhere to those principles of having a culture set around pride, unity, respect and integrity, that we do what we can to be closer to our communities, to give communities confidence, that we're really realistic, open and honest about everything that we do, but remain ambitious in key priority areas, that we value close working relationships with elected members, and that we recognise that employees are the most valuable asset of the organisation, and that we should do what we can to support and develop them in their careers. So those are the shared values of the organisation. I know that the Code of Corporate Governance is not the most thrilling page-turner document that anybody will ever have picked up, and it looks very dry. We just wanted to get the content in, and we will look to make it a more accessible and easier to look at document with some colours and pictures, etc. if the content is approved. I would say we would like to say thank you to Liz and to Bob and to the Chair, who've all fed into the production of the document. I'm happy to answer any questions on it.
I must say, for a lawyer to say that a document's dry, it must be dry. It must be, sorry. But
it lacks Latin.
Not written with the quill pen. No, I'd like to thank Gary for drafting this. I've pushed for this for some time. I welcome the fact that the leaders introduced it. Thank you. I think that shows the commitment to it. Gary mentioned the 6 or 7 guiding principles from the
First Solace document.
The SIPFA Solace document, and that's the same document that sets out the requirements of the annual governance statement as well. In a way, but the annual government statement, which we get each June or thereabouts, should really be referring back to this. It's accounting for how well the council is complying with its code there. And I think it's really important. I think that there's another major reason for it. I think this is probably the more important reason as well sometimes, is that, you know, we as a committee, we talk about corporate governance a lot. It's our bread and butter as a committee, as the leader has said. And I think it's important that all members and officers and employees, that there's an explicit commitment made to good governance and an understanding of what good governance is there. And I like the way that the document doesn't just set out governance as being about the processes. It, as well as the processes, as it says, it's also about culture and values and the way that members, elected and lay members and employees, the way that we think and act. And it involves such things as respect and conduct and so on as well. And it's, in summary, it says about governance is seeing that the council is run properly. So before I say any more, any points or observations from members of the committee on this? Nigel Rudd, thank you.
Yeah, far be it from me to make any comment given the support of the leader and the chair of the committee and the monitoring officer on this. But I just would ask, when the document is finalised, Gary, in particular, that we exercise version control, either using the header or footer on the document. As I'm mindful of incidents elsewhere where inappropriate referencing was made because the documentation hadn't been properly controlled in terms of the version being referred to. So just as a practice issue there, Gary, for you to consider going forward. Thank you.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Take that on board. I think there was another issue that was flagged up, Nigel, which was helpful, which related to Principle F and needing more reference to the management of assets and the way in which we do that. That's right. I think that's an oversight. We do refer to the asset management strategy and the asset management group against principles D and E, but they do need mentioning in Principle F, and we will insert that and amend that before it goes to council, if that's okay with everybody, because that is an omission, I think, and something that we should include.
Yeah, thank you, Gary, for picking that up. Thanks.
Thank you, Nigel. Bobby Feely?
Just a quick comment to say how important this is. When we see the global trend from certain areas, I don't want to get political at the moment, how important it is that we do conduct our business properly and well and have good governance. It's the key to everything. So I welcome this.
Thank you. Mark Yemmel?
Thank you, Chair. And I'll try and make it interesting from... So, is it clear how regularly the code will be updated and reviewed? And how will we measure the success of embedding the code across the authority, please?
It's a point that the chair raised on the initial draft. So we have included, and I'm desperately trying to find it, we have included a reference to the fact that yes, I found it on page 139 under section 4, that each year the Corporate Governance Officer Group, so that includes the likes of section 151 officer, chief auditor, monitoring officer, other officers from around the council, we will review this code each year, because that will be done at the time when we're looking at the annual governance statement, and so there will be a cross-reference between the two. So we'll be able to do that. In terms of embedding across the council, I think what this document does is it describes what's already going on, in effect. So all of these things that are listed in here already exist, all the groups already meet, etc. And in terms of perhaps the most important bit, which is the culture, good luck if you can go to a meeting with the chief executive and he doesn't mention the values and principles of the organisation, because he's been really keen from the day he started to make sure that that was driven down through the organisation. And we continue to do that. We're really fortunate in the people that we employ. We're really fortunate that in the members that we've got, that the culture of this organisation is to be challenging, constructive, but governance is always put at the heart of it.
I think also, as far as how well embedded the document is, the AGS, the annual governance statement itself will be a comment on that. It should be. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So if there's no more questions or points, I think we should just agree a resolution with this. I'm suggesting that the committee recommends the draft code, local code of governance for its adoption by the council, subject to any changes that have been discussed in this meeting around Principle F. So can I look at for a proposal for that, please? Councillor Mark Young, seconder. Carol Holiday, all in favour? Thank you. Thank you very much for the work done on that. Thank you. Right, item 10, the Governance and Audit Committee work programme. I'm just going to run through this very quickly. We have a regular, just to remind you, we now have a regular agenda setting meeting between the Vice Chair, myself, and the Chief Internal Auditor. So we meet in advance of the main GAC meeting. The plan you've got in front of you the programme you've got in front of you runs to November 2026. It needs extending on a rolling basis, which we will do once we've got a clearer picture regarding the statement of accounts and so on, because they're hopefully coming in March. And obviously the nature of the reporting of the statements of accounts has a major impact on the programme. I think the whistleblowing strategy, the annual whistleblowing report, which was is now due in November. So that's an important report for us, going back to what we said about conduct and governance in the previous item. The training in there, the treasury management is arranged. We've talked about that. One thing we did mention at the last meeting, following the one-to-one meeting we had with auditors, is that we're supposed to be having a session with Audit Wales on their roles and functions. So we could do with getting that arranged. I think it'd be really useful that to meet with Audit Wales and to get an overview of what their role and functions are. The other thing I was going to raise, Liz, particularly whilst you're here, is before we get the statement of accounts to approve, and when we approved the draft one at the last meeting, there's a lot of head scratching and puzzled looks there from members, which is not surprising. Could we possibly have a training session on the statement of accounts before then sometime? I do have, I think I might have emailed you, but I still have the one that you presented years ago, and there's also one that was presented to the All Wales group of chairs, which I think from 2 years ago, and I think it'd be useful just to go through that so members have some idea what they're looking for and what the various statements mean. Would that be?
Yes, provided.
Well,
we're done with the budget by February.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can arrange. I'll put something in. So the back end of February, early March, so that it's fresh. Thank you.
I know it's a complicated document, the statement of accounts, but I think the statement, I think the main thing that's required is just so members know what does this particular statement mean, what it's showing us, and so on. We don't need necessarily need lots and lots of background. But I think, do members think that would be useful? I'm going to give you nods, yes. Okay. The other training, I'll meet with one of my one-to-ones with Bob sometime, and we'll come back to you on that. The other thing, just from a training point of view, from a development point of view, that next week I'm off to the All Wales chairs group, meet with other GAC chairs and vice chairs, Chief Auditor and myself. So I think the recommendation is that the committee approves the forward work plan programme. Can I have a proposal for that, please? Carol Holiday, seconder, Ellie Chard, all in favour? Thank you. And then we go on to the 2 information items. As information items, we're not going to get a summary, but the first one is the annual corporate health and safety report. I think some officers have come to, is it Catherine and Derek?
Sorry, Chair, it's Catherine Roberts, who's Head of Corporate Support Services People, and it's Dave Roberts, who's our Health and Safety Manager.
Yeah. Dave Roberts, sorry. I called you Derek, I do apologise. So it's only an information item, so there's no introduction necessary. I'm just aware of the time as well. But I do thank you for the report. we may still have some observations or questions despite it being an information item. To me, it's an essential assurance that we receive as a committee. There's a wealth of important detail in here, and it's assuring that such information is available. That's good. You know, when you look through the chart, the various tables and charts, there, it's amazing that information is there, and it's very assuring that it's there, it's being monitored, and something's being done with it. There's much that is positive in the report. In past years, we've asked for more headlines to either assure or alert the committee to such things as significant incidents and near misses, significant trends, areas of significant non-compliance, assurance that all incidences, near misses and non-compliances were properly reported, assurance that everyone is aware of the responsibilities and that training is provided and attended. In the main, well, the report seems to provide this. There's a few details I might raise, but other members first. Any points or observations from members on this? Carol?
In the misses on table 3, but I sort of, but it's only sort of from mid-2024 that we sort of wondered what that, that was.
Yeah, near miss reporting was a request by one of the heads of service, and it was only introduced as a separate category mid-24. It is a development area which will be increased in 2026 when the new link intranet is launched.
At the end, there seems to be an increase in incidents. So I just wondered, is it a concern?
What page is it on?
173 or 17 of 21, whichever you want. Eh? Yeah.
Okay, the number of reported accidents and incidents has increased since previous year, mostly associated with non-injury incidents or events. We identified that increase is down to improved awareness of accident reporting, health and safety training, and senior management input with the discussion of all accidents and incidents at the health and safety group meetings. So overall, I would see that increase as a positive, because we have got sort of areas of under reporting through the authority. So we welcome that increase in reported accidents.
Yeah, the increase is actually a positive sign, really. Yes. Yeah.
Acknowledge in Appendix 2 that the statistics for the uptake on training has been sort of more positive, and so that's very sort of revealing too. And there was one other, probably missed it now, but one of the health and safety overviews, the figures you had, I didn't reckon the figures totaled at what the total was. I think it's probably nearer table 3. Oh no, it isn't. It's I'll tell it. Page 182. On that, it was the next one down actually. It says total incidents 1656, but when you add the non-injury, the asset damage, the total minor major, and that, they don't add up to the 1656.
We'll have a look at that and amend it as
Yeah,
necessary.
There's 13 more on it, actually.
Okay.
Which-
Sorry about that.
It's okay. And I noticed on the graph that incidents in November showed a high rate. Was that due to weather elements or thing? If we had slips and trips or something?
Yeah, the numbers of accidents and incidents does vary throughout the year.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure of the detail of November, but the numbers do go up and down throughout the year.
Thank you, Carol. Nigel Rudd.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question from me in relation to page 163 or page 7 of 21, item 4.4. All driver training has now been transferred to fleet services. How do we, this for assurance question, how do we ensure that that training is being undertaken by fleet services, please?
Okay, if I answer that one for you. So you're absolutely right. The corporate driver training transferred over to Highways and Environment, or specifically the Fleet Service, in April this year. They were already undertaking an element of it, and we had a vacancy in our area, so it made sense for us to review that. And it was felt, because they've got the responsibility for fleets, ensuring compliance with drivers' legislations, etc., that it sat better in there. It hasn't always felt right in health and safety. It's not necessarily a health and safety function previously. So that's why we've transferred it over to fleet services. This is the first year. We don't directly monitor the completion of training. That responsibility does sit with the fleet manager in Highways and Environment. But what I would say is that we still work closely with them around the driving element of the vehicle elements for the council. So we don't directly monitor it, because that responsibility does sit with the other services, but we do work with them closely generally. And if there were any issues, we'd pick them up through that means.
Thank you very much.
Ellie Chard.
Yes. Apologies here, but I can tell you it was page 10 out of 21, and it's page 166. Over the weekend, I hadn't, because I was away, I hadn't read the agenda for today's meeting, which I read on my return yesterday. But I was alarmed to read, I think it was either the Daily Post or the Journal, about the housing officer going alone. And I was alarmed about that, because I just thought, oh, for goodness sake. But I'm just hoping it wasn't due to the fact that, I'm hoping it was just the fact that she'd forgotten to get somebody to go with her, and not something, I don't know. But I was just alarmed about her going there, because she was, she couldn't get out, could she? She was being held in the house.
Processes.
I think we need to talk more about process than individual cases.
Yeah.
I think I was just going to ask a question on that myself, if I can just come in on that one, rather than specifics of that.
I was just very alarmed, Chair.
Sure. No, that's fine.
Reading it in the press. Okay, that's where I'm coming from.
I do have an important clarification on that, if I may. Probably my poor wording, but to clarify, it wasn't a failure to follow loan working procedures. It was a failure in available information to ensure safe loan working procedures. So the member of staff was unable to access the Paris system, where there was an alert for persons not to visit. The housing officer didn't have access to that system due to GDPR. So it was a failure of sharing information between service areas rather than the loan working procedures themselves.
If I just add something to that one, in the as a result of that, we have changed the process, so that now the information does feed into the system that all staff has access to.
But you've both answered my question, which is going to be on any event like that, and the other instances here where there's to do with people having followed procedures or procedures that aren't there to be followed, or they're not, lack of awareness or whatever the reason. But in each case, you obviously investigate it to make sure that things are put right there. So it's, if you diagnose what the issue is, whether it was willful. In this case, it wasn't, but as you rightly say, but if some cases, in other instances, if people willfully disregarded rules or they're not aware of rules, but the investigation will find out exactly what's happened there, and
it will be the managers to investigate in the first instance, and then if we're called in, we would further investigate.
In investigate, even though you don't do the investigation yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Ellie.
Yeah.
Just as I say, in this report, there's a lot there that as I went through it, I thought that's really useful. I mean, you give on page 160, you give the corporate health and safety structure there and who does what there. That's really useful for us to know. As Ellie's just been from a question there, going through the significant accidents and instances, that gives significant accidents and incidents. I can't say that very easily. That gives us a real good perspective of sort of things that go on there. Also, you talk about the safety culture on page 159, the pack page 159. The first paragraph says that, from what you say, that it's really assuring that there's such a good commitment by SLT and indeed by senior management to health and safety. What I'd like to know is, though, presumably you make sure that different people, members, managers, employees, and the corporate health and safety are adequately aware of their own and each other's responsibilities. And based on an incident that happened where I used to work before, is there confidence that something would get properly reported and escalated properly up to the appropriate level? Does that make sense? My question.
So I think in terms of the assurance, I think there's quite a clear framework in place around ensuring that SLT, middle managers, staff, etc., know what their responsibilities are. And obviously they differ depending on the level within the organisation. We've got a very clear corporate health and safety policy that's been reviewed this year and has been circulated to all staff, and as I say, middle managers, SLT. It's been presented to our JCC, it's got responsibility for corporate health and safety, and also the Directorate Corporate Health and Safety meetings as well. And I have to say, I think those meetings have raised the profile of health and safety. It puts a focus on it on a quarterly basis within those services, and it includes the middle managers. So in terms of the assurance that people know what they should be doing, I would say yes, that's there. In terms of the escalation, the responsibility does lie with the immediate manager initially in terms of identifying the incident and reporting it. If it comes through to health and safety, then yes, they would pick it up, and if they deem it as something they need to be involved in, they would proactively go looking and contacting the managers. But I think the culture within Denbighshire is that the relationship between managers and the corporate health and safety service is one that managers would pick up the phone, and even if it didn't need escalating, they would have that conversation to see whether it needed to or not.
That answers my question, thank you. Any other questions, Mark Young?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So really good report, well laid out, so thank you. So just one question, some of it's been answered, and you've also given an example of an escalation with the member of staff, so that's good. So what are the main risks for health and safety risks facing the council, and how are these being managed currently, please?
So I think the first thing to note is that corporate health and safety, there is a corporate risk around health and safety. That was reviewed by our senior leadership team probably about 3-4 months ago. So in terms of the corporate risk around health and safety, that's current. it's up to date from our perspective. And then I think the general risks differ from service to service then, and they would have their own risk register around corporate health and safety. If you look at my service, it's very light around health and safety because of the type of makeup of the staff that we've got. But if you to look at something like highways and environment, their risk register on health and safety is much bigger and much more detailed. So that's the general picture. I think, Dave, do you want to come in on what the specific risks would be?
It depends what service we're talking about, because we're such a diverse organisation. It's very difficult to answer that question.
They're going to be very diverse, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, can I just come in? But from what Catherine said, but each service does have its own corporate health and safety risk register, though.
They will have their own risk assessment.
Yeah.
Sort of at head of service level, and that would be sort of cascaded down to each of the individual teams, who would have their own risk assessment sort of registers and develop safe systems of work from that.
Right. So that's fine, and it's been managed. So that's the key. So each service, I appreciate each service is different. So there is a register, and it's from that data, it's being managed, the risk.
Yes.
Any other questions?
It is, and I think just to give you assurance there that, again, coming back to the Directorate's health and safety meetings, that's where the focus would be, around making sure those relevant risk assessments are there. So absolutely, it is being managed.
Any other questions or points from members? No. Well, thank you very much. There's no resolution from this report. It's information, but thanks very much for the report. Thanks for answering the questions. I think just to say that I think our concerns, our interest in it is that to me, health and safety is one of those areas that's fraught with risk, and it usually tends to be well managed, but you just need one that isn't well managed to go badly wrong, you know, and that's what I think that's why, you know, it's right that it does come to this committee on an annual basis. So thank you very much. Thank you. And item 12, it says compliance annual report for 2020. I think it means property compliance annual report. And whoever wrote it owes some money to the Christmas Drinks Fund, because they've put on it the Corporate Governance Committee. We've been the Governance and Audit Committee for several years now. So someone whoever the report author is owes something to the Christmas Drinks Fund.
Testing me.
I think they're just testing it.
I'm sure it was a deliberate mistake to make sure you were reading the report, Chair.
So, okay, so again, it's an information only report. So there's no introduction, but I do thank Crystal Butler. I think she's here. I've seen her name, and Helen Vaughan-Evans.
I think Crystal's had to leave to go to another meeting.
Oh, sorry.
Chair, but Helen is here.
Do apologise, we're a bit late, but Helen's here for the report. So we may still have some observations and questions. Again, this is an essential assurance that we receive. The report is succinct and gives clear assurance. But any questions or points from members? Nigel Rudd.
Thank you, Chair. I thought it was a good report, but I was wondering whether it was possible to pick up the live issues which we have at the moment regarding, for example, rat failures in buildings, contaminated land sites, and the cladding issues that arise from the Grenfell discussion, because they are relevant to the authority, and I just wondered where and how they might be reported in similar format, because I think the format that's used in this report is really helpful in providing the context and the statutory requirements. How might they be picked up, Chair? Thank you.
Okay.
Shall I take that one, Chair?
Please,
Helen. Yeah, and just to welcome Councillor Gilly Matthews, lead member as well for this item. So it's not been included previously, but it could be going forward. The compliance report is based on things that kind of servicing and inspection regimes that happen regularly, and kind of compliance for that, whereas those standalone issues are more of kind of a task and finish approach, but still still I agree of interest to this property compliance report. Regarding RAC, a full review has been taken of our corporate non-HRA estate, and HRA have done it on their own estate separately. And there was RAC present in a primary school, Ysgol Trefnant, which has been completely remediated. Brilliant work from the team. That was completed this past summer. And then there is also RAC present at another asset with appropriate management plan in place and plans to resolve that in the coming years. So that's the situation with RAC. With situation with contaminated land, so this is an environmental health matter rather than a property compliance matter, which is regulated under the HSE. Environmental health matter is regulated under other legislation, but I can confirm that we do have a register for our land around pollution, and we have no contaminated land sites on the register. And I can send Chair the link to where that's saved on our Denbighshire County Council website, so you can see that at your leisure, and members of the public. In terms of Grenfell and cladding buildings, so following the tragedy at Grenfell, there was a mandate for all councils to submit a list of any properties which had any form of cladding on them, and additional information provided on the materials and fire rating. I can report that that happened in 2017, wasn't it? So a while ago now, but Denbighshire submitted all of that information that was required. And we were at the time and continue to be comfortable with what's there, and that there are appropriate risk assessments and management in place on any risks. So that's what I can report verbally. I think in regard to the cladding of buildings, that is a sort of a static statement, but we can sense check it and conclude it annually if desired. Contaminated land, again, that is a static statement, but again, we can include it as required. And then the RAC, partly static and partly we can provide an update as that one remaining site is remediated. So that's my answer to that, Chair. And forgive us for calling you the Corporate Governance Committee again. That will be amended and corrected in future reports.
Do members think it'd be good to have those areas included in the reports in future? Generally, yeah. Okay, good, thank you.
No problem.
Just one thing question from me. On page 223 in the pack, report page 1, in respect of Denbighshire Leisure, the SLA regime with Denbighshire Leisure. I should though, because I'm a member of the Denbighshire Leisure Strategic Governance Board. We haven't, in fairness, we haven't met for a long while now. But is this SLA regime likely to continue? The reason I'm asking that, I'm thinking of, particularly in regard to the Legionella risk with leisure centres. So is that SLA regime likely to continue with Denbighshire Leisure?
Yeah, so Denbighshire Leisure can continue with our SLA as long as they want to, and it's typically extended each year without question. So in any new regime, such as the one that was considered earlier this year, if that had gone ahead, we would still be doing their property compliance on a refreshed SLA. And I think whatever comes next with DLL, that will be considered as part of that. But we like having the assurance around that risk, Chair, with our in-house staff carrying out that compliance.
Okay, that's reassuring. Thank you. Any other questions or points? Okay, there's no resolution, it's an information item. So thank you very much, Helen, and thank you for the work that's gone into this. Thanks, Crystal, as well. So thank you all members. That concludes the end of this meeting. Our next meeting is the 26th of November. So safe journey. Au revoir. Goodbye.